Chapter 399. At lunchtime, a group of people sat at a long table covered with a white tablecloth in the restaurant of the casino's box. It was as if they had agreed not to mention anything about Yi Huanyan and the others being detained. Ji Xiaoya arrived before dinner. Gu Xinian was in a hurry to leave. Seeing his anxious look, Yi Huanyan guessed that Xiaoyu had followed him. He was afraid that his ex-fiancée would bump into his current fiancée. Yi Huanyan knew Ji Xiaoya very well. Since she was already here, if she didn't see Fuingxiang, there would be a thorn in her heart. If this thorn was brought back to China, she was afraid that her marriage with her brother would be fraught with difficulties. After a long time, the people around her would be in trouble. She decided to call Ji Xiaoya without telling Gu Xinian. When she called, she found out that she was indeed in Las Vegas. Gu Xinian arranged a hotel for her and gave her his card. This directly led to Ji Xiaoya, a shopaholic, shopping in the mall the whole morning. The things she bought filled half of the mall's floor. When Yi Huanyan called, she was directing the mall's security guards to move things into the car. These things were not checked in, so there was no way she could take them with her. When Ji Xiaoya heard that she was going to eat with her ex-deskmate, she only threw a sentence over the phone. "Your lunch will start later. I'll go to the nearest beauty salon first." When Ji Xiaoya arrived at noon, the casino's corridor almost became her personal runway. She was wearing a little black dress with fluttering black feathers. The design of the dress revealed her slender swan neck. Her face was meticulously done with makeup. It could be said that she was in a very good state. After holding Gu Xinian's hand and walking into the restaurant, she raised her chin and looked around. Then, her gaze landed on Fuingxiang. There were only 3 women present. Other than Yi Huanyan and Chen Yin, the remaining woman was naturally Fuingxiang. Over the phone, Yi Huanyan had told her about how the flood had washed away the Dragon King temple. Therefore, she knew that Fuingxiang was Yi Huanyan's sister, who had gone through thick and thin together in prison. Therefore, she was prepared to be magnanimous before she came. However, when their eyes met, she still couldn't restrain her emotions. His face fell instantly. "Hello, I am Fuingxiang." Ji Xiaoya held onto Gu Xinian's arm with a stiff expression. She didn't say anything, and it could be said that she didn't give him any face at all. Yi Huanyan desperately tried to signal her with her eyes. She nodded reluctantly and spat out 3 words in a very stingy manner, her tone cold. Ji Xiaoya. She didn't have any manners at all. After sitting down, she fiercely pinched Gu Xinian. Because Yi Huanyan was sitting with them, when Ji Xiaoya pinched Gu Xinian's thigh, this action fell into her eyes very clearly. Gu Xinian was obviously in pain, but he only furrowed his brows. Yi Huanyan felt a little sorry for her brother. While Chen Yin, Manager Wang, and Fuingxiang were discussing the matter of the cheating, she lowered her voice and asked Ji Xiaoya a question. "What's wrong? Didn't we talk about it before we came? You have to be magnanimous and have the aura of a first wife." Ji Xiaoya gritted her teeth. She used the fork in her hand to smash the cherry tomatoes in the fruit salad. She gritted her teeth and said, "You didn't tell me on the phone that she was so good-looking." Hearing this, Yi Huanyan subconsciously raised her head to look at Fuingxiang, who was sitting opposite her. She was wearing a cream-colored knitted cardigan with a casual white t-shirt inside. She had light makeup on, and her chestnut-brown wavy curls were tied up behind her head. A few strands of hair fluttered in front of her forehead. She had a kind of demure temperament about her. The people present were all dressed more casually. This made Ji Xiaoya's outfit look too grand. The makeup on her face was also a little thicker. In comparison, she couldn't help but fall short. Thinking of this, Ji Xiaoya pinched Gu Xinian again. Yi Huanyan really couldn't bear to see her brother suffer, so she lowered her voice and whispered something in her ear. Ji Xiaoya released her hand and said in a daze, "Are you serious?" "Yes, really." Yi Huanyan nodded seriously. A long time after returning home from Las Vegas, Gu Xinian suddenly thought of this matter and asked Yi Huanyan several times. What exactly did she say to Ji Xiaoya that made her suddenly change her attitude towards Fuingxiang? Yi Huanyan just smiled without saying anything. At this moment, Ji Xiaoya suddenly raised her glass of red wine and proposed a toast to Fuingxiang. "I heard that Mississippi Fu took great care of Yin Yan when she was in prison. As her best friend, and as her future sister-in-law, I would like to propose a toast to you. I hope that we can be friends in the future. This action saved some face for Gu Xinian, and also helped her regain some of her poise. Fu Yingxiang had been in the casino for so many years, so she was very good at speaking. The two of them drank back and forth, and after 3 rounds of drinking, they were enjoying themselves. At the dinner table, the matter of Chen Yin cheating at the casino was brought up. It was found out that the dealer Li Side had lost too much and framed Chen Yin. Chen Yin had won so much money in half a night partly because of luck, and partly because she had Naaneo, the little strategist, by her side. When Chen Yin pushed Naaneo out, apart from Gu Xinian, everyone, including Yi Huanyan, was shocked. Mississippi Chen, please don't joke around. No matter how talented your young master is, he can't be so successful at the gambling table, right? This is a place where luck is a factor. Because Manager Wang had taken 2 punches from Chen Yin for nothing, Fu Yingxiang made an exception and called him over to eat at the same table. But from Yi Huanyan's point of view, this was not a good reward for Manager Wang. During the entire meal, Fu Yingxiang would occasionally glare at him and rebuke him, making him tremble in fear, as if he was treading on thin ice. This was completely a personal vengeance, and he did not know how he had offended his own boss. You all don't believe me? Chen Yin looked around, and did not find a satisfied expression on anyone's face. She suddenly became anxious. Naaneo, let's show them what we can do. Saying this, she turned to a big man behind her and shouted, Bring over a dice cup, 3 dice. That big man clearly did not understand what she said, and looked at her blankly. Fu Yingxiang repeated it in English. Only then did the big man run away as if he had been enlightened. Not long after, a dice cup was brought to the table. Chen Yin held the dice cup and raised her eyebrows. So that no one will accuse me of cheating again. Who wants to shake it? I'll do it, Manager Wang volunteered. Before shaking the dice, Fu Yingxiang asked, Are you guys guessing the number of points or the size of the dice? Chen Yin did not even look at Naaneo and directly said, The number of points and the size of the dice is child's play, and it's just guessing the size of the dice. You won't believe that I won so much money. In a casino, the more difficult the game was, the higher the chances of winning and losing. Chen Yin was able to win more than 10 million in just 2 hours. She definitely didn't win it just by sitting at the simplest dice table in the entire casino. Chapter 400. Fu Yingxiang coughed dryly. Are you sure? Chen Yin was displeased. Why would I lie to you? Why would I lie to you now? Chen Yin panicked when she realized that no one supported her. Ji Xiaoya chimed in. My godson is a child prodigy. I believe that he has the ability to do so. Miss Fu, you don't have to jump to conclusions so quickly. Fu Yingxiang's expression did not change despite being reprimanded by Ji Xiaoya. She merely smiled faintly before she turned to look at Manager Wang and signaled for him to roll the dice. The dice clinked against each other in the dice cup. Yi Huanyan was sitting closest to Naaneo. She realized that her son had closed his eyes and was mumbling something, but she could not hear him clearly. With a clang, Manager Wang slammed the dice cup on the table and slowly moved it forward. The dining table instantly quieted down. Not a single sound could be heard. How many? 2 for 6. Naaneo opened his eyes. His voice was tender, but his gaze was so firm that he did not seem to be someone his age. Manager Wang lifted the dice cup nonchalantly. Everyone looked at each other when they saw the numbers of the 3 dice in the cup. Other than Gu Xinian, everyone else had a look of disbelief on their faces. Again, Manager Wang seemed to have never heard of this before. He did not wait for anyone to react before he hurriedly rolled the dice again. How many? 1 3 6. He lifted the dice cup, and it was exactly the same. Again. How many? 2 4 5. He lifted the dice cup, and it was exactly the same. He repeated the same thing more than 10 times, but he did not miss a single time. Manager Wang was sweating profusely, as though he had just run a marathon. He stared blankly at Naaneo. Luckily, we wronged Miss Chen last night. If we had allowed them to continue playing, they would have won the entire casino. Naaneo was holding a wooden spoon, as he dug into the mashed potatoes in front of him. He looked nonchalant as he spoke in a childish voice. "Isn't it just good hearing? What's the big deal? Don't make such a fuss." His childish voice was accompanied by the expression of a little adult, but his hands were clumsily digging for mashed potatoes. This scene made everyone laugh heartily. After the meal, everyone left the casino. Gu Xinian accompanied Ji Xiaoya back to the hotel. Chinyin also left with Naaneo. Before leaving, Yi Huanyan hugged Fu Yingxiang and winked slyly. "You're really not coming with me? I still have some things to do this time. I'll definitely look for you when I'm done. If I didn't have a scene at the theater tomorrow, I would have stayed here with you tonight. There's plenty of time. Now that I've broken the ice with your brother, your Four Seasons villa should release me in the future, right?" Fu Yingxiang was talking about 9 years ago. After she was angered by Gu Duo and left, the entire Four Seasons villa had maintained a state of alert against her and forbade her from entering. "Of course, you're welcome at any time. You're my fourth sister." Fu Yingxiang sent her out of the casino. After the waiter opened the car door, she held the door and looked at Yi Huanyan in the car. Her eyes suddenly dimmed. "Say, if the person in the villa back then wasn't Gu Duo but you, would Xi Nian and I still have a chance?" "Fourth sister." Yi Huanyan didn't know how to comfort her. Fu Yingxiang suddenly smiled. "Forget it. Some people are destined to have deep love but shallow fate." After saying this, she closed the car door and waved at Yi Huanyan through the window as she watched her leave. Fate was something that couldn't be explained clearly. More than 10 years ago, Gu Xinian promised to marry her when he came back from South America. But a year later, he brought back a woman named Su Ke. 9 years ago, she pulled her suitcase and shamelessly moved into his house despite her father's objections. She ate and lived with him for half a year and accompanied him through the lowest point of his life. At that time, he said that he would consider her after he got his child's ashes from Gu Duo. It was just a weakness in front of Gu Duo, and it became an excellent excuse to reject her. She treated this excuse as a promise and kept it for nearly 10 years. Then he held another woman's hand and told her again that he was going to get married. "Hello, I'm Fu Yingxiang." "Yes, what's the matter? Don't get me wrong. I just want to ask you, other than taking photos, did Yin Yin come to Las Vegas for her ex-husband's wedding? I heard that it's going to be held in a church in the suburbs this week with Gu Duo. What's wrong? Are you going to interfere? Don't say it as if it has nothing to do with you. Gu Duo won't be willing to marry someone else. And even if she's willing, that person can't be Yin Yan's ex-husband. You should know this better than I do." "I know. Then what do you plan to do?" There was silence on the other end of the phone. After a while, Fu Yingxiang sighed. "Don't worry about it. You don't have to worry about it. I'll take care of it. Consider it as me owing you and your sister a favor. Consider it my wedding gift to you." She wasn't a person who made promises easily. She valued her promises more than anything else, so she would definitely do what she promised. Gu Xinian's deep voice came from the other end of the phone. It was very solemn. "Thank you." It was late at night, and the moon was high in the sky outside the window. Fu Yingxiang couldn't help but think of those nights when she looked at the moon with him on the balcony 9 years ago at the Four Seasons villa. "Xinian, if I changed the request that I was going to use to threaten you this morning into a question, would you agree?" Her voice was a little sad, and he couldn't bear to refuse. "Ask. This question is actually very vulgar. Don't mind it." "Okay. If it was Ji Xiaoya now and I was in the same situation 9 years ago, would you let her go?" 9 years ago, it was when she was closest to Gu Xinian. She once thought that after spending those days with him, it would be a lifetime. There was a long silence on the other end of the phone. When he spoke again, his voice was very difficult. "Sorry." This answer seemed to have nothing to do with the question, but she understood the meaning of these 2 words better than anyone else. "Sorry if it was her. I wouldn't let her go." 9 years ago, she lived in the Four Seasons Villa's Nanyuan and accompanied Gu Xinian every day. After half a year, his sister, who had admired him for many years, felt threatened, so she used a set of ashes to threaten her to leave the villa. In her eyes, death was like a light going out. All of this was meaningless. However, in Gu Xinyan's eyes, it was the belief of Gu Duo's hometown. A dead person should be buried in the ground. A broken body could not be reincarnated, so he tacitly agreed that Gu Duo let her go. She used to think that no woman could compare to Su Ke. Her love for him was only second to this dead woman and his child. But she was wrong. The word sorry made her finally realize that that love was just her imagination. 9 years ago, Gu Xinyan just needed a woman's warm companionship, and she happened to appear and accompany him for a period of time. During that time, she thought that the gentleness had nothing to do with love. It was all an illusion. You have nothing to be sorry for. In fact, you were willing to take such a big risk to save me 5 years ago. Or even 9 years ago. She used the life-saving grace 5 years ago as a reward. Since then, they didn't know each other anything. After hanging up the phone, Fu Yingxiang leaned against the soft cushion of the bay window and looked at the bustling streets of Las Vegas. Her heart became more and more lonely and empty. The night was dark and tears were flowing. Chapter 401. In Las Vegas, in front of the floor-to-ceiling window of the penthouse suite of a 5-star hotel, a woman in a pink bathrobe walked to the man with a glass of red wine. Want a drink? Ling Han glanced sideways. Am I so familiar with you that we can drink together? The woman didn't care about his cold attitude at all. Don't forget, you're going to marry me in 2 days. I've already sent out the invitations. When the time comes, my biological parents, your grandfather's family, and your brothers and sisters will all come. I don't plan to play with you. I'm curious. Why do you want this wedding? Do you just want to anger Yin Yin and me? Or do you just want to do it for Gu Xinyan? What do you think? What do I think? Ling Han sneered. No matter who you want to do it for. I'm afraid you won't get what you want. It's just a waste of time. Is that so? Yi Huanyan heard that you and I are going to have a wedding here. So didn't she rush over? Am I the one who's tormenting, or is she? She's here to act, Ling Han corrected. She's doing well in France. Why did she transfer to Las Vegas? This scene wasn't set in her original script. She went through a lot of trouble, and some people don't appreciate it. I feel sad for her. In the end, you're just saying these things to me to make my heart ache for her. Actually, you just want to see her brooding about this wedding and even ruin it. But what's the point of that to you? Is it your pleasure to see others fall in love, but can't be together? Ling Han frowned, displeasure written all over his face. Whether it's my pleasure or not, you have to complete this wedding with me. I'll only give you the thing after the wedding, and get on the honeymoon plane with me. And then it's none of your business. Gu Duo picked up the wine glass and walked to the seat beside him, overlooking the bustling streets of Las Vegas. The world is so beautiful. Looking at you love-struck men and resentful women around me, I feel like I've lived in vain. Ling Han looked at the side of her face from the corner of his eye. This face was 70% similar to Yi Huanyan, but he couldn't find her charm. They were both in their 30s, but this woman's mind seemed to be filled with bigotry. On the eve of the wedding, Yi Huanyan knocked on the door of Ling Han's hotel room. She leaned against the door with a teasing smile on her face. What happened to you? If you want to ask why am I here? Yi Huanyan flashed into the room and sat down on the sofa casually. She raised her eyebrows and said, I just checked in this afternoon. If you want to know why I am here, why don't you come here? Let me tell you. I'm here to ask you for an invitation. Invitation? Ling Han's face darkened. Isn't it inappropriate for you not to invite me to your wedding? Yi Huanyan blinked. After all, I'm your ex-wife. I'll explain to you after the wedding. The fire in the alley had basically solved all the problems. Even if neither of them explained what had happened before, the knot in their hearts that had been tied for 5 years showed signs of loosening. Explain what? Explain that Gu Duo tried every means to threaten you to have a wedding with her? Ling Han frowned. Yi Huanyan had already picked up the red wine glass on the table and poured half a glass for herself. She lazily took off her shoes and leaned against the sofa. She threatened you with the ashes of my brother's son? He pursed his lips and didn't say anything. He didn't need to think to know that he had guessed correctly. How could such a small trick threaten you? I always thought that you were invulnerable. When she was describing him, she hesitated for a moment. After she finished speaking, she carefully looked at him. Suddenly, the person in front of her was different from the cold and ruthless man in her impression. Ling Han stood in front of the sofa. He was 187 meters tall, but he looked a little cramped in front of Yi Huanyan. He still owed Yi Huanyan an explanation about the wedding, but he didn't have any confidence that such an explanation was really important to her. Her dazzling return, and the child she had with whom he didn't know had all made him extremely disheartened. The evaluation of invulnerability seemed to be a kind of mockery to him. He stared at her in a daze, then lowered his head and said in a low voice, "The invulnerable is an immortal, Yin Yan. I'm just an ordinary person." A slightly stunned expression flashed across Yi Huanyan's eyes. After a while, she said bitterly, "Actually, this matter has nothing to do with you. You don't have to be involved." Even if Gu Duo had asked for something unreasonable, he could have rejected it flatly, because she wasn't a member of the Gu family. She didn't have a good relationship with Gu Xinian, so there was no need for Gu Xinian's weakness to become his weakness. It was very unreasonable. Then what do you think is related to me now? Ling Han slowly raised his head, as if he had been provoked by the words "it has nothing to do with you." His eyes were bloodshot, but it wasn't anger, but deep sadness. Yi Huanyan was stunned. She suddenly stood barefoot on the carpet and poured another glass of red wine in front of him. "It's about drinking. I still like drinking with you." The sadness in his eyes couldn't be erased. He took the wine glass, tilted his head back, and drank it in one gulp. Yi Huanyan was stunned. She hesitated and said, "Drink slowly." Was it because 5 years had been too long? Or because she had hurt him too deeply 5 years ago? She was so calm now, but she could always transform into a sharp knife at any time and cut into his heart. He missed the Yi Huanyan who dared to admit her love in front of him 5 years ago. He missed the Yi Huanyan who risked everything to climb into his bed. He missed the Yi Huanyan who loved him deeply and left no room for negotiation, no matter how many embarrassing things he did to her. But he knew that even if he spent a lifetime with her, he wouldn't be able to find her again. Ling Han couldn't hold his liquor well. After 2 glasses of wine, he felt a little dizzy, and his steps were unsteady. Yi Huanyan hugged his neck and slowly swayed to the rhythm of the music in front of the floor-to-ceiling windows. She looked satisfied. "Hey, don't you think it's pretty good that we're like this now? As long as you like it." His voice was low as usual. He finally gave up on pestering her and became obedient to her every whim. "My 4th sister said to leave the ashes to her. Don't go. Yin Yan, do you want to remarry me?" he suddenly asked. As he spoke, Yi Huanyan felt a force around her waist. He wrapped his arms around her waist and lifted her to his chest. She smelled the fragrance of the red wine and the faint smell of tobacco on his body. It was intoxicating. Yi Huanyan frowned. Her voice was a little soft. "There shouldn't be any difference whether we get married or not, right? I can give you a grand wedding. It's 100 times, 1,000 times grander. All my relatives and friends will acknowledge your existence. Is that okay?" "Actually, there's no need for that. Ling Han, we're doing very well right now." Yi Huanyan lowered her eyes. She was worried. Actually, to her, marriage wasn't just about her. She also had to consider Naaneo. Chapter 402. Late at night, after a night of entanglement, she finally fainted from exhaustion. Ling Han caressed her cheek and brushed her hair behind her back. He looked at this face that was very different from before. It was beautiful, but he could only see a hint of docility when her eyes were closed. A hint of sadness flashed across his eyes. Thinking back to those years, he had done too little for her and hurt her too much. Gu Xinian's warning echoed in his ears, and the reality of it tore his heart apart. He had once felt that she and her mother owed him. Jiang Milan had ruined Wen Qingwan, his family, and the person who loved him the most in this world. Before he could find the culprit to collect his debt, he found that the culprit had already gone deep into the ground and turned into a pile of dust. So he naturally thought that his mother's debt would be repaid by her daughter. Naturally, he was paranoid and blamed all the fault on Yi Huanyan. But later on, he gradually realized that she did not know about those things. Later on, he found out that she was not even Jiang Milan's daughter. So 5 years ago, he was full of resentment and revenge, but now it seemed like a joke. He felt guilty, and when he wanted to make up for it, he found that he could do nothing. She was reborn. She had an illustrious family background. She had parents and brothers who doted on her. She had a group of friends. Her career was thriving, and she even had a child. She did not need him. Or rather, she only needed him occasionally. It was a biological need. No one in this world was more qualified than her to say that she did not need to get married. Marriage was a shackle and a burden to her. She was used to a life of freedom, so why bother? And there was not much he could do. So since there was something in front of him that he could do, how could he not do it? At least it could exchange for a little peace of mind. His hand brushed across the smooth lines of her back, causing her to tremble. She slowly opened her eyes and muttered, Okay, I don't want to. I'm sleepy. He originally didn't have this intention, but after being disturbed by her obedient and coquettish tone, he immediately felt the strangeness in his body. He flipped over, lifted her up by the waist, and bent down to enter her. Yi Huanyan was attacked in her sleep. She couldn't help but groan in pain. She waved her hand behind her in dissatisfaction. Don't. The alcohol hadn't passed yet, so her words were still coquettish. There was a sense of laziness and drowsiness. That slap didn't land on Ling Han's restless hands, but on her own perky buttocks instead, causing her to cry out in alarm. Like a frightened little beast, a certain part of her body shrunk. Ling Han let out a muffled groan from being squeezed. He almost couldn't help but end it early. She was perked up high, and there were fingerprints on her buttocks, which gradually turned pink. His eyes also gradually turned red with the pink luster, and he couldn't help but speed up his movements. The big bed creaked as it moved. Yi Huanyan propped her arms on the pillow, feeling the high frequency of friction behind her. She let out a mesmerizing and hoarse moan with his movements. Ling Han sped up while calling her name. His voice was hoarse and seductive. Yin Yin! Yin Yin! Yi Huanyan was drunk and sleepy. She let him torment her, rubbing and pinching her. Her mind was clear for a moment, then in a daze. After a night of indulgence, it was already dawn when she woke up, and there was no one beside her. Her smooth and fair arms reached out from under the blanket to feel for the phone at the bedside. She lazily glanced at the time. Then in the next second, she rolled out of bed. Damn it! Yi Huanyan got up and washed up as quickly as possible, then rushed to the wedding venue. The hotel was booked very close to the church in the suburbs for the convenience of traveling to and from the wedding. According to the wedding procedures, the bride and groom would go directly to the airport for their honeymoon after the wedding, and would not return to the hotel. Therefore, Yi Huanyan felt that she really deserved to die for oversleeping today. On the way, she thought about how she had accidentally run to Ling Han's door last night, and her face turned red. In the church, Ling Han did not take this wedding seriously, so there were only a few symbolic relatives and friends here. But there were ridiculously many people on Gu Duo's side. Except for the members of the Gu family who were not present, her cousins from the main family filled the church. In the dressing room, Gu Duo's biological mother, Wen Lan, was directing a few stylists to tidy up her wedding dress. Her eyes were red. Why are you crying? It's a good day. The one who spoke next to her was Gu Duo's biological father, who was in his early 50s. He was wearing a well-ironed suit, but he kept frowning and looked very rigid and serious. My daughter is getting married. Can't I be happy? Wen Lan glanced at him and scolded with a sobbing voice. If you didn't insist on sending the child to the Gu family, would it have been delayed for so many years? If you didn't find a good son-in-law, my daughter's life would have been ruined by you. Father Gu glared at her unhappily. What do you know? If my daughter hadn't been in the Gu family all these years, do you think our family business would have been so successful? If we didn't have the Gu family as a backer, would the money I earned be enough to buy you a mess of jewelry and branded bags? Wen Lan was yelled at by him, and couldn't find any words to refute for a moment. She turned to look at her daughter. Duo, don't listen to your father's nonsense. No one cares about you more than I do. I sent you away in the first place, because I wanted you to have a better environment. Okay, stop pretending. Gu Duo had been listening to them quarreling, nagging, and even shirking their responsibilities for so long that she was numb. As parents, they didn't act like parents. What kind of daughter did they expect their daughter to be? Thinking of this, she sneered. Go out. I want to be alone. When the time comes, I'll go out by myself. When the couple heard their daughter speak in such a cold tone, they were stunned, especially when Lan. Her eyes showed some resentment, and she quickly pulled her husband, who was about to lose his temper, out of the room. After they left, Gu Duo stood up and asked the stylists in the dressing room to leave as well. Then, she walked to the window alone, her eyes clear. Among these people, was there really someone who wished her well? The corners of her mouth curved into a smile, and she was very self-deprecating. It was almost time. Someone knocked on the door outside. Miss Gu, it's time to enter the venue. The ceremony is about to begin. Her snow-white dress fell down the spiral staircase step by step. She held her father's arm and walked step by step to the tune of the wedding march towards her groom. To her, this used to be something very worth looking forward to. When she was young, she thought that what she looked forward to was a wedding. Later, when she really experienced a wedding, she realized that what she looked forward to was actually the person standing in the middle of the red carpet, waiting for her. It was not the person 5 years ago, nor was it the person now. Chapter 403. I'll leave my daughter to you. Treat her well or else. All right, let's go. His hasty exhortation was interrupted by Gu Duo's glare and impatient words. She held Ling Han's arm and walked towards the end of the red carpet, in the direction of the pastor. Ling Han couldn't help but frown when he thought of the father and daughter's attitude just now. Yi Huanyan doesn't really care about you. No one came. Gu Duo's voice came from beside him, sounding a little irritated. Ling Han suddenly had a thought in his mind. He originally guessed that Gu Duo wanted a perfect wedding, but at this moment, he felt that no one was more anxious than her to ruin this wedding. No one came. This wasn't directed at Yi Huanyan. To put it bluntly, Yi Huanyan was a shield. She really hoped that Gu Xinian would come. Ling Han curled his lips. I don't know if Gu Xinian will come, but Yin Yin won't be coming today. Gu Duo frowned and said in a low voice, That's impossible. She drank too much last night. She probably hasn't woken up yet. You're anxious. Ling Han suddenly grabbed her hand and forced her to follow him in front of the pastor. From the beginning, Gu Duo didn't expect this wedding to go smoothly. She expected that someone would come to ruin it. Whether it was Yi Huanyan for Ling Han, Gu Xinian for his sister's lifelong happiness, or even Ji Xiaoya for her best friend, someone would come. But at this moment, it was already the vows, and the entrance of the church was still quiet. Inside the church it was solemn. The pastor's voice echoed in the church. His fluent English and gentle tone added a sense of solemnity. Mr. Ling Han, are you willing to marry Miss Gu Duo, regardless of life and death, poverty and wealth? I'm willing. There was no hesitation in his answer. His answer was straightforward, but there was no emotion in it. After he answered, he clearly saw Gu Duo's eyebrows tremble. Miss Gu Duo, may I ask? After the priest finished asking, all eyes fell on Gu Duo. I. Ling Han's eyes were filled with anticipation. He guessed that Gu Duo would ruin the wedding even if no one was present. But at that moment, her eyes were filled with hatred. She gritted her teeth and said, I'm willing. This answer made Ling Han frown. The priest was still giving a lengthy monologue. Gu Duo and Ling Han looked at each other coldly, as if they were laughing at him and at themselves. Look, on a day like today, none of the people we were looking forward to showed up. It seems that I'm a little late? A clear female voice sounded from the entrance of the church. A tall figure walked in against the light. Her expression was calm and cold. She was wearing a dark green dress with a belt around her waist. Her figure was slender and slender. Why are you here? With Gu Duo's obvious voice, everyone looked at the door. Her long chestnut brown hair draped over her shoulders. She walked on the red carpet step by step, but she only stood in the center and did not take a step forward. There was a hint of mockery in her voice. Why? Are you looking forward to someone else coming to ruin your ridiculous wedding? You can't hold it in anymore, and want to expose your intentions for a certain someone to see? From Ling Han's point of view, he could clearly see a faint light in Gu Duo's eyes. He asked you to come, didn't he? Where is he? It was self-evident who this he referred to. Fu Yingxiang sneered. He went back to the Four Seasons villa last night. Oh right, he left with his fiancée. Gu Duo's eyes were sluggish. The light that she had been looking forward to disappeared. She muttered, impossible. What's impossible about it? Do you think this is 5 years ago? Do you think he will tolerate a woman like you again and again? Don't forget that you have nothing to do with him. They were not lovers, nor were they siblings. Fu Yingxiang's every word hit Gu Duo where it hurt the most. However, her face was calm and collected, giving people a sense of compassion from a god's perspective. Gu Duo's face was pale. She suddenly stumbled toward Fu Yingxiang and screamed, "Impossible, impossible, impossible!" Fu Yingxiang frowned. She turned her body slightly and snatched away the hands that were reaching out to strangle her neck. She staggered and fell to the ground. Her veil scattered, and the crystal clips fell to the ground. The whole venue was in an uproar. Gu Duo's mother was the first to rush up and support her daughter. She screamed at Fu Yingxiang, "Who are you? Are you deliberately causing trouble? Is there no one to care? Where's the security?" Gu Duo did not appreciate it. She flipped her mother off the stage. Ignoring her cries of pain, she grabbed Fu Yingxiang's skirt tightly. "I don't believe what you said. He wasn't afraid that if I really married Ling Han, his biological sister would not be happy in this life, and his most precious nephew would not have a father in this life?" A figure on the stage swayed. "Nephew? Father?" He quickly came back to his senses and walked over quickly. He picked up Gu Duo from the ground and growled, "What did you say? Who did you say Naneo's father is?" Ha 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 ha. Gu Duo's shoulders were held tightly by Ling Han. She let out a maniacal laugh, which became more and more shrill. "Ha ha ha, you still don't know? Ha ha ha." Fu Yingxiang looked at Ling Han, whose eyes were red. She frowned and pulled him up. "I'll take care of things here. You go and look for Yin Yan." Ling Han came back to his senses and looked at her suspiciously. Fu Yingxiang raised her eyebrows. "You don't believe me?" How could she not believe it? Even if Yi Huanyin and Gu Xinian were present, they might not be able to do such a thing. The scene was already in chaos. Gu Duo's parents originally wanted to come up and ask about the situation, but they were all restrained by Fu Yingxiang's people. Later, for some unknown reason, the two of them started to fight below the stage. One tried to stop the fight, and the other tried to stir up trouble. The scene was chaotic. Seeing this scene, Ling Han made up his mind. He took off the white bridegroom's brooch on his collar, got up and ran out of the door. In this chaos, Fu Yingxiang was like a lotus flower that grew out of the mud. She calmly squatted in front of Gu Duo and looked at her condescendingly. "I know what you're thinking. Just like 5 years ago, you're waiting for him to come and take you away from the wedding, right? This time, you're much more prepared than last time. You know that the ashes are no threat to him now, so you want to use Ling Han? He can't not come. Then look at what this is." Fu Yingxiang raised her mobile phone, and a photo came into Gu Duo's eyes. It was a photo of Ji Xiaoya and Gu Xinian at the airport yesterday evening. The caption read, "Two people on a trip around the world. There was a small problem on the way, but now we're on the road again. Mauritius, we're coming." Gu Duo had never seen Gu Xinian smile so gently. He put his arm around the woman's shoulder and showed a sincere and satisfied smile. "No." After a scream, Gu Duo broke down and grabbed the phone, smashing it in the distance. Chapter 404. Fu Yingxiang wasn't angry that her phone was smashed into pieces. She just frowned and continued to stare coldly at Gu Duo in front of her. She got up from the ground, as if she was possessed, and staggered to the position where the vows were supposed to be. After looking around, she grabbed her distant cousin who was supposed to be her bridesmaid and asked, "Where's the box?" The girl was obviously frightened and pointed to the ground with a trembling finger. In the chaos, everything was knocked over. Fortunately, what Gu Duo wanted was obvious. It was a rectangular suede box. She didn't care about the cumbersome layers of the wedding dress. She squatted down to pick up the box and hugged it in her arms. Her eyes were full of panic. Where's the phone? Where's the phone? She touched the wedding dress in her hand and suddenly looked up at the bridesmaid in front of her. Her eyes were red as she shouted, "Give me the phone." The girl was frightened and took out her phone with trembling hands. Before she could hand it to her, it was snatched away. Gu Duo climbed onto the stage and dialed a familiar number. "What are you doing?" Fu Yingxiang approached step by step. "Stand there and don't move. I'm going to call him." Gu Duo suddenly shouted and stopped Fu Yingxiang in her tracks. Her eyes were filled with certainty. He'll definitely come. He loves Suka so much. How can he bear to let that child die without a complete corpse? Fu Yingxiang looked at the rectangular box in her hand and said faintly, "For so many years, you thought that holding that child's ashes in your hand was equivalent to holding his life. You used it on me 9 years ago, and you succeeded. You thought it was omnipotent. Have you never thought that he would actually fall in love with someone else in this life?" At this time, Fu Yingxiang's people had already cleared all the guests out. The church, which had been bustling with noise a second ago, was now as quiet as a dilapidated castle from the last century. It was eerie and eerie. "Sorry, the number you have dialed is currently unavailable." The busy tone was faint, very appropriate for the occasion. After a series of violent smashing sounds, both the phone and the box were smashed to pieces. The figure in the white dress let out a heart-wrenching cry that reverberated throughout the church. Fu Yingxiang was suddenly moved. She admitted that she had loved Gu Xinian for many years. Her whole heart was tied to him, and she could never forget him. However, when it came to love someone so deeply and madly, even Suka back then couldn't compare to this woman in front of him. She risked universal condemnation. She loved by hook or by crook. Her love made people feel fear. But it was undeniable that she loved like a moth to a flame. "Actually, even if he comes today, what can you do?" Fu Yingxiang's voice relaxed. Her eyes full of pity fell on Gu Duo. Gu Duo fell to the ground. Her eyes were a little hollow. After a long time, she stood up and walked towards the door. In a trance, Fu Yingxiang seemed to hear her say, "I just want to find the feeling from 5 years ago and remember it." "Where are you going?" She caught up with her 2 steps. This time, she heard what she said clearly. The woman in the white wedding dress stared blankly in the direction of the door. Suddenly, there was a light in her eyes. "He's here." Fu Yingxiang frowned and raised her head to look at the door. It was empty. Yi Huanyan ran to the church door, panting, but saw that the church door was closed. "Damn," she gasped for breath. Her eyes dimmed a little. Or was she too late? The phone that she had been holding tightly all the way rang. Looking at the caller ID, Yi Huanyan felt a surge of anger in her heart. "I called you for half an hour. Why didn't you pick up? Did you forget all the things I asked you to do?" The voice on the other end of the phone trembled. "Sister Yan Yan, I had hot pot last night and had diarrhea the whole night. I can't even stand up." "Didn't you go to eat with Su Nianhua last night?" "Yes, he found a restaurant. He told me that he had been here before and insisted on eating at that restaurant. I think he's exhausted from the diarrhea now." The person on the other end of the phone suddenly realized something. "Damn, isn't it that person's wedding today? How is it? Damn my brain." Yi Huanyan looked up at the closed church door and said in a depressed tone, "Forget it. He's probably on the plane. I'll call him when he gets off." Before Gu Xinian left, he told her that he would no longer be controlled by others because of that child. 9 years of repentance might not be enough to clear his guilt towards Suku, but he understood that even so, he couldn't let down another woman who loved him. So last night, Yi Huanyan originally wanted to talk to Ling Han about this matter, but she ended up talking nonsense and drinking, so she didn't mention a word about it. In the hotel suite, after frantically ringing the doorbell, the door opened a crack, revealing a pale face. Chun Yin stared blankly at the tall figure at the door. "You." She couldn't say anything for a long time. "The wedding is cancelled. I'm looking for Yan Yan." His simple words made Chun Yin, who couldn't stand up straight after the whole night, give him a thumbs up. She didn't say anything else. Suddenly her stomach turned. She hurriedly fled with a pale face and said, Do as you wish. I have something to do, so I won't accompany you. After that, she bent her waist and dashed into the bathroom of her bedroom like a gust of wind, leaving behind two memorable words, F***CK. Ling Han was about to enter the room when a childish voice sounded. Auntie Xiaowu, you're so noisy. He closed the door and stood behind it. His eyes met with the small figure in pink pajamas in front of the master bedroom door. And the atmosphere suddenly became a little strange. Naaneo saw that his gaze was strange, so he frowned and crossed his arms like an adult. Why are you looking at me like that? This question made Ling Han feel resentful. He pointed at the sofa guiltily and asked tentatively, Can I wait here for your mother to come back? Naaneo stared at him for a few seconds as if he had seen a ghost, then shrugged. Up to you. In the past he was always so arrogant. What was wrong with him today? After saying this, Naaneo walked to the dining table in the small living room and climbed up the chair with ease. He then reached out and pressed half of his body on the table to reach the kettle in the middle of the table to pour tea. A large hand scooped up the kettle and poured a cup of water in front of him. Do you want to drink water? Naaneo looked at the cup in front of him, then looked up at the man holding the kettle across the table. His expression was very unnatural. He frowned and said, Didn't you pour it all out? Naaneo thought to himself. According to the previous few interactions, this man would definitely be at loggerheads with him. However, at this moment, it was as if he had seen a ghost. He was actually looking at him with a smile. That smile gave him goosebumps, and the hand holding the glass of water trembled. What are you doing? He finally couldn't take it anymore. He put down the cup heavily and stared coldly at Ling Han, his pink little face full of vigilance. Chapter 405. Ling Han didn't know that Naaneo had a bad temper when he woke up. More importantly, he didn't sleep well last night. Chenin had diarrhea all night. Even though she consciously slept in the bedroom next door, the sound of flushing from time to time was like thunder in the middle of the night. Every time Naaneo was about to fall asleep, there would be a rumbling sound coming from next door. The continuous flow of water seemed to be pressing down on his brain, making him irritable all night. At this moment, Ling Han's strange appearance in front of him was like hitting the muzzle of a gun. Why are you looking at me like that? Naaneo glared at him, his attitude very unfriendly. Ling Han had experienced his son's temper several times, so he wasn't too surprised by his temper. He thought about how he didn't have a father all these years and might have been bullied by others, so he didn't care about his attitude at all. I didn't realize before, but you look very much like me. Who looks like you? Naaneo frowned, his face full of displeasure. Kid, did I not ask you before who your father is? Several times. He only asked his date of birth and repeatedly guessed in his heart, but he didn't formally ask him about his father. His intelligence exceeded that of children of his age, so he definitely knew more things than other children. So it might be right to ask some questions straightforwardly. Who's the kid? Naaneo looked at him with dissatisfaction. You're so annoying. No wonder my mommy doesn't want to remarry you. Remarry? Ling Han looked at him with a complicated expression. You know who I am? Naaneo returned his look of contempt. Weren't you just trying to ask me who my father is? Ling Han was delighted, and his eyes revealed some light. You know me. Yin Yin told you. What else did she say? You. Is it worth being so happy? Naaneo shifted his gaze 2 inches away and muttered. To me, you're not even as important as Auntie Xiaowu, whom I've just met. What's there to be proud of? The feeling of being choked by a 5-year-old child, especially his own son, should have made him so angry that he vomited blood. However, Ling Han had always been an unconventional person. At this moment, this little boy who was looking at him with contempt made him feel an inexplicable sense of pride. His mind was filled with the words, my son is so smart, so sharp with his words. He even knows how to use the word presence at such a young age? A morbid sense of pride. Naaneo looked at him with disdain and muttered, Are you done yet? Ling Han realized that his attitude was not normal, so he came back to his senses. He looked at the child in front of him and said, I didn't take care of you and your mother in the past. I will make it up to you in the future. What's the use of saying this to me? You'd better think of a way to deal with my mommy. Ling Han's expression became more and more serious. I don't just want your mommy to give me another chance. I also want you to give me another chance. He looked so sincere and pious that Now was at a loss for what to do. The genius young man boasted of his superior IQ, but the people around him still treated him like a child. The only one who really talked to him seriously was his uncle. But his uncle was usually very busy and didn't care about him. If you have the chance, go find my mommy. It has nothing to do with me. As he spoke, he jumped onto the floor and fled into the house. He even locked the door behind him. His actions were done in one smooth motion. Looking at the tightly shut door, Ling Han withdrew his solemn gaze, but still sighed. He didn't know why, but when facing this son of his, he always felt powerless and a little guilty. This kind of guilt was very strange. When Ling Dongming was still alive, he didn't feel guilty when he saw him. Why did he feel guilty when he saw his own son? He pulled out a chair and poured himself a glass of water. He silently digested everything that had happened since Yi Huanyan came back. In the beginning, everything had happened so suddenly and messily that he couldn't make heads or tails of it. He didn't even know if Gu Huanyan was Yi Huanyan. Later on, he figured it out. But Gu Duo came out of nowhere and messed things up. Because she had a son who was 4 or 5 years old, he began to worry that she might have a new lover. Half of the reason he held a wedding with Gu Duo was to help Gu Xinian carry things, and the other half was to give up on himself. Thinking of this, he raised his hand and patted his forehead. His face paled a little. If he had known that Yi Huanyan was still waiting for him for 5 years, and that the child was also his, he would never have agreed to hold a wedding with another woman. Not to mention holding a wedding, he wouldn't show any trace of ambiguity to Yi Huanyan. He didn't care if Gu Xinian had something on other people. It had nothing to do with them. He should clean up the mess he made himself. Why did he have to harm his own sister? This was a mess. Before he could sort out his thoughts, he heard the beeping sound of a card swiping the door open. Yi Huanyan dragged herself back depressed. There was no one in the living room, and there was a strange sound coming from the bathroom of the guest bedroom. It was obvious that Chen Yin was still exhausted. Xiao Wu, are you okay? Do you want me to buy some medicine for you? She knocked on the door of the guest bedroom. A painful voice came from inside. I've taken it. It hasn't worked yet. Don't worry about me, okay? She went to the door of the master bedroom and turned the handle directly, only to find that it was locked from the inside. Naaneo, why did you lock the door? A weak voice came from inside. Mommy, I'm so sleepy. I want to sleep. All right. Yi Huanyan's entire shoulders collapsed. She turned around and walked towards the sofa, pinching her eyebrows. Now she couldn't even find someone to talk to? Her head was still throbbing from the hangover. Last night, her ex-husband, who was inseparable from her, went on a honeymoon with her cheap sister. After resting at noon, she had to rush to the church in the evening to shoot the last concluding scene. How could this scene be described as just miserable? After sitting on the sofa for a while, she only felt sleepy. Without any hesitation, she walked towards the other guest bedroom, directly opposite the master bedroom. Fortunately, she had booked a suite with 3 bedrooms. Otherwise, she could only sleep on the sofa. Ta pulled her slippers and opened the door. The room was dark. She frowned and touched the wall to turn on the light. A black shadow flashed by, and she cried out in alarm. Before she could raise her voice, the person pressed her against the door, sealed her lips, and kissed her deeply for more than 20 seconds. She struggled frantically, but that person ignored her and pinned her firmly behind the door. He leaned over and kissed her lips, refusing to let go. She gradually sensed the identity of this person from the familiar smell around her. Her eyes widened all of a sudden. How was it possible? Yi Huanyan's mind went blank and exploded. Wasn't he supposed to be on the honeymoon plane? Oh, why are you here? I love you, Yin Yan. The sudden confession made her body, which was already hot, completely burn up. Her mind was still in a daze, but her body was already carried by him. Chapter 406. In the darkness, no one could see each other's faces clearly, just like that night in Florida a few months ago. The soft bed, the familiar body, the whispered words of love. He was venting all of his longing and love, drowning her like a tidal wave. She begged for mercy again and again, enjoying the pleasure of her lower body, while enduring the pain of her waist being hit. She had to pinch his arm and complain incessantly. What the hell? What's wrong with you? But he had no intention of stopping, nor did he have the slightest intention of explaining. Yi Huanyan only felt that her waist and abdomen were numb. Her whole body was like a folding chair. She had been in the position of being folded for too long, and was about to lose consciousness. At the moment, she couldn't care about her face and shouted, Han, spare me. I can't take it anymore. This Han made Ling Han's movements slow down, but a certain place where their bodies were intertwined still maintained a close connection. It was like being cut into pieces, rubbing little by little, but it was even more deadly. Yi Huanyan's 10 toes were all curled up. She looked at the man who tortured her in front of her with a face like a peach blossom. She gasped for a long time and barely exhaled. If you want to kill or cut, just give me a quick death. A dangerous voice came from above, pausing after each word. Is Naneo my son? Her eyes were sluggish. Although she knew that Ling Han couldn't see her face at the moment, her head couldn't help but move 2 inches to the side of the pillow, trying to avoid face-to-face contact. In this matter she was indeed guilty. After all, he had the right to know. She didn't speak, only feeling a fine friction coming from inside her body. At first, she thought that he was going to withdraw, but before he could go out, he pushed in again. When he brushed past a certain sensitive spot, she couldn't help but let out a broken sound, waiting for the habitual pleasure. But unexpectedly he stopped again. He patiently rubbed her bit by bit, deliberately not giving her satisfaction. Whether it was physically or mentally, at this moment, she felt like thousands of ants were crawling over her, numb and itchy. She gritted her teeth and trembled as she grasped the bedsheets under her body. Her voice was broken. Yes, it's your son. I'll be gentle. It hurts. His movements became gentle again. He picked her up from the pillow and put his hands around her waist, sharing each other's breaths at a close distance. His voice was low, his breath hot. All these years, are you still waiting for me? Yi Huanyan lay on his shoulder panting. The heat from her lower body was still in her body. This sitting position was very deep, and his twitching from time to time made her unable to stop. At this moment, there was no time to think about other things. She made up her mind and confessed everything. His sudden appearance seemed to have picked up her heart that had sunk to the bottom of the valley and hung it up in the sky with a full moon. Her heart was wild with joy. Even though she was drowned by his passion and covered by the darkness of the room, only she knew how fast the heart under her chest was beating. Chun-Yin bit her hand and squatted in the toilet for a long time. The medicine she took finally took effect. When she came out of the bathroom with trembling legs, she didn't see the person who was supposed to be in the room. She touched her hair and looked at the empty living room with a puzzled expression. She clearly remembered that Sister Yin Yen was back. Didn't Ling Han come before? A strange sound came from the guest bedroom opposite. She was stunned. Just as she was about to go over, the door of the master bedroom suddenly opened, attracting her attention. I'm hungry. Naanea was wearing pink pajamas and tugged at the corner of her clothes. Then I'll call you to order food. She was about to call room service when she said that. Naanea was still tugging at her clothes and said seriously, let's go downstairs to eat. The food is cold when they send it up. What's cold? It's almost 30 degrees outside today. Chun-Yin didn't care and dragged him to the landline in the living room. Las Vegas was so hot that it was exploding. Why would they send cold food in such a small place? The hotel's air conditioning is cold. A faint voice came from behind. Seeing that he was so persistent, Chun-Yin had to do as he said, but she couldn't help but frown. What's wrong with you today? You usually cry and beg when I ask you to go out. You're so cooped up that you're moldy. Today you want to go out by yourself. What's that sound? Chun-Yin raised her head and looked at the opposite room in confusion. Let's go. I'm hungry. Naaneo held her hand and almost ran out of the room, closing the door behind him. Hey ancestor, I didn't bring the room card. Get someone to open the door after dinner. I didn't bring my wallet. In the evening, in a suburban church, Ling Han and Yi Huanyan appeared at the same time, which shocked the crew. After all, the news of Ling Han's wedding today was still very clear to them, especially the staff who happened to be filming here. The chaos in the church in the morning obviously hadn't spread. Everyone took it for granted that Ling Han should be on his way to his honeymoon. Of course, there were still people in the crew who were calm, such as Guan Nai and Su Nianhua. When Yi Huanyan appeared holding Ling Han's arm, Guan Nai only glanced at them and reached out to Sheng Anren. 1,000 yuan I win. Sheng Anren took a deep breath and reached for his wallet. He took out a stack of bills, counted them, and handed them to Guan Nai. What are you doing? Yi Huanyan looked confused. Nothing. Su Nianhua curled his lips and glanced at Sheng Anren. Someone's evil intentions are not dead yet. As soon as he heard this, Sheng Anren jumped up from his chair. Don't pour dirty water on me. That's one thing. It's just a bet. What? Yi Huanyan looked at them in confusion. Sheng Anren stood up straight. When he saw Ling Han, his eyes narrowed a little. He calmed himself down and raised 3 fingers, looking like he was going to swear. You said that we'll write off what happened in the past, so I'll take it that you're sincere. They made a bet last night at dinner, and I just said something casually. I didn't mean any harm, so don't get me wrong. Yi Huanyan was even more confused when he saw how serious he was. What bet? Guan Nai fanned herself leisurely with a handful of bright red banknotes in her hand. She looked at Ling Han with a meaningful gaze. What else could it be? We're betting that you won't rob the wedding today. Rob the wedding? Yi Huanyan's face froze. Guan Nai continued. You changed hotels in a hurry yesterday afternoon and stayed so close to here. Weren't you planning to rob the wedding? And now everyone can see the situation. Since you've already robbed the wedding, there's no need to hide it. Although the plot is a little tacky and old-fashioned, it's fine as long as you have the wedding. Guan Nai had always been one to shock people to death with her words. This time, Yi Huanyan was at a loss for words. What the hell was going on? Chapter 407. The final scene of Remaining Life came to a perfect end at a church in the suburbs of Las Vegas. Yi Huanyan raised her hand and shouted into the intercom. Okay, this one passed. The final scene came to an end. In the camera, Guan Nai, dressed in a white veil, and Su Nianhua, dressed in a suit and leather shoes, were both smiling blissfully. When the entire crew was taking group photos after filming, Yi Huanyan was busy calling for everyone to gather and take photos, so the scene was a little chaotic. Su Nianhua saw Ling Han standing in the distance and hesitated for a few seconds before walking up to him. Why aren't you taking photos? Seeing Su Nianhua, Ling Han's gaze froze slightly. I'm not part of your crew, so there's no need for that. Since you're so formal, why did you come over? Ling Han glanced at him. There are too many men in the crew, so I'm afraid some of them won't give up. You're talking about me? Su Nianhua asked directly. All these years, my daughter is the same age as your son. Do you still think that I can't forget Yin Yan? Ling Han didn't say anything. Times had changed, and Yi Huanyan's return made the thorn in Su Nianhua's heart disappear. He only felt lucky that she could come back, because her return also gave him peace of mind, the kind of peace of mind that he could spend the rest of his life with Sung Ro. Su Nianhua rubbed his forehead, looking a little tired. So many people think that I can't forget her. Sometimes it even makes me dazed, and I ask myself if I should be so devoted to her from the start. It's as if I have to pester her until the end for it to be the end. The hot wind brushed past him, and his clothes fluttered. Ling Han still didn't say anything. But I think you're all wrong. Just like how Yan Yan's brother used to love Su Ku. But now he's with Xiao Yu, Gu Xinian, and I have one thing in common, which is that we don't spend much time with the people we used to love, and we feel a lot of guilt. After so many years of chasing each other, we can't tell whether it's to make up for it or for love, or maybe it's both. I did love Yin Yan, but that was 15 or 16 years ago. For the next 10 years, I felt guilty, and for the next 5 or 6 years, I blamed myself. It has nothing to do with love, so you don't think too much about it. Ever since Yi Huanyan disappeared 5 years ago, Ling Han and Su Nianhua had always been at odds in the company. In the past few years, his career had been on the decline, and he wasn't easy to get along with. He had caused a lot of trouble for pleasure, and even though Ling Han was cold and distant to him on the surface, he was still very tolerant of him in private. And it was all for Yi Huanyan's sake. So after all this, Su Nianhua realized that he had to return the favor he owed him for so many years. This reassuring pill had to be given to a paranoid person like him. Ling Han, however, had an indifferent expression. After a while he said, "I'm not talking about you." Su Nianhua's heart skipped a beat. He followed his clear gaze and looked into the distance. Yi Huanyan was holding onto Yi Huanyan's arm for a selfie with the second male lead Bai Ting. Bai Ting had been very popular recently and was known as the nation's school hunk. He didn't seem to have any scandals about him, so this intimate gesture was rare. Su Nianhua's face paled. "No way." His explanation just now seemed like a joke, but Ling Han didn't want to give him a way out. He said casually, "I don't think you're a threat to me." Su Nianhua's face paled even more. He suddenly said indignantly, "Then how is he a threat?" Ling Han didn't even look at him. He spat out 2 words. "Young." Su Nianhua and Yi Huanyan were the same age, but Ling Han was 8 years older than them. He was 40 years old now, so he was a little jealous of others' youth. Su Nianhua's smile stiffened. Bai Ting had just graduated and was in his early 20s. Whether compared to Ling Han or him, he was young enough. "I was very young back then too." He pulled the corners of his mouth and tried to maintain his politeness. Ling Han seemed to have been reminded. He muttered to himself for a few seconds and suddenly relaxed. He smiled. "Yeah, then Yin Yan probably likes older guys." "What?" Su Nianhua's face turned pale. He felt that he had nothing better to do than to come and comfort Ling Han. He was definitely out of his mind. "Hey, Brother Hua, come and take a picture." The stage supervisor's voice called Su Nianhua over. Ling Han looked at Yi Huanyan, who was surrounded by people, with a smile in the corner of his eyes. "Still not giving up? I'm afraid you don't have the ability." The crew of Remaining Life officially wrapped up filming that day under Ling Han's watch. After that, the crew returned to China and started non-stop post-production editing in order to be released as a New Year's movie. The post-production editing work only required Yi Huanyan to take a look occasionally, so she had a lot of free time. "Hey, didn't all your relatives come to the wedding? How did they deal with it?" Ling Han narrowed his eyes and tilted his head from the spacious plane seat to look at the woman leaning on his shoulder. He said in a very casual tone, "Who told you they were my relatives? Who did you see?" Among Ling Han's relatives, Yi Huanyan was familiar with some of them. Ling Dongyu's family was the only one she could remember by name. She had seen his grandfather's relatives a few times, but she couldn't remember their names. But the meaning behind his words couldn't help but surprise Yi Huanyan. "Didn't you send out the invitations? Do we need real relatives for a fake wedding?" The corners of Ling Han's mouth curled up, revealing a sly smile. From the beginning, he didn't take this wedding seriously, so regarding the invitation, the only person who actually received it was Secretary Dong. She even ran around to help him find Asian extras in Las Vegas to make up the numbers. Yi Huanyan only had 2 words for Ling Han's behavior. "Sly old fox." "If I didn't do this, my relatives and friends would attend this wedding, and then our wedding soon after. It doesn't matter if most people are too lazy to explain, but I have to explain to my grandparents and second uncle's family. I'm not afraid of the trouble, but I'm afraid you'll find it troublesome." His voice lingered in her ears. She had just drunk a glass of orange juice from the stewardess, so even her breath was filled with the fresh scent of oranges. Naaneo's attitude towards Ling Han was much better. When they boarded the plane, she was hugged by him. Although she looked awkward, she didn't resist. This made Ling Han happy for a while. After that, he started to talk more. In contrast, Yi Huanyan felt like she had switched personalities with him. She was a little less talkative. "What's wrong?" Noticing her silence, Ling Han stopped talking and looked at her in confusion. Yi Huanyan said calmly, "Nothing. I just feel like you're more talkative today than usual." Ling Han's smile faded a little. he asked softly. Was I very quiet in the past? Not really. The year I first came home, and after that. Yi Huanyan suddenly stopped talking. The two of them fell silent as if they had agreed to it. Ling Han was actually not a particularly quiet person. He grew up overseas and was deeply influenced by Western capitalism. When he first came back to China, he was actually a sunny and humorous person. Chapter 408. When Jiang Milin and her mother first came to the Ling family, Ling Han did not treat them well. After all, when Qingwan had just passed away for less than half a year, Ling Dongming suddenly brought in a pair of mother and daughter, and did not even inform him beforehand. This made him somewhat uncomfortable. So that year, he did not return home much and lived alone outside. If it wasn't for the fact that the old madam wanted to see him during the new year, with his personality, he probably did not intend to have any interaction with Yi Huanyan and the others. That year, in Yi Huanyan's eyes, he was a taciturn person and an ice-cold older brother who was not easy to get along with. And after 8 years of companionship, his original bright and charming characteristics were exposed bit by bit. In those 8 years, he was her omnipotent big brother Ling Han. After that, Ling Dongming and Jiang Milin passed away in a car accident, and he accidentally found Wen Qingwan's diary. Such a big mess was directly placed on his head. Before he could find any way to vent, Yi Huanyan bumped into him and climbed into his bed without a care in the world, shouting that she wanted to marry him. How much he loved her before, how much he hated her after that, and how much he regretted it after that. Ling Han did not dare to think about how much damage these cruel times had brought her. When he thought about the details of the past, he felt that he was not worthy of her anymore. You used to talk a lot in the past, but it was also in those 2 years that you became less talkative. Ling Han continued, but there was bitterness in his voice. Yin Yin, I'm sorry. The person in his arms stiffened. After a while there was a nasal laugh. You might have to keep those 3 words. It's a little early to say it now. It's not too late to say it when we get there. Not long after that, Yi Huanyan felt a heavy force on her shoulder, followed by a low voice. This time they were going to the Four Seasons Manor. Yi Huanyan had just brought the film crew back to China for half a month. She had just finished explaining the editing process when she received news from her parents at the villa. Gu Heng had personally called her and wanted her to bring Ling Han back. At the same time, Wen Yi's dissatisfied grumbling could be heard from the other end of the phone. Why did you bring him back? He dirted my house for no reason. I will beat that kind of person up every time I see him. Wen Yi didn't like Ling Han. She didn't hide this fact. She mumbled to Gu Ling, I'll see how it goes. I'll ask him if he's free. As soon as he said this, Wen Yi became even more noisy, probably because the other end was on speaker. What is he busy with? What can a small company be busy with? If he wants to be my son-in-law, let him show some sincerity. Busy my ass. All right, his company isn't small. On the other end of the phone, Gu Ling was comforting her. She could hear the helplessness in her voice. Yin Yan, regardless of whether he's busy or not, bring him here. Your brother will be back in 2 days. We can have a meal together as a family. Aha, okay. Yi Huanyan had no choice but to agree. Before she hung up the phone, she heard Wen Yi shouting at the top of her lungs. What family? Old Gu, you're getting more and more ridiculous with your words. Is that bastard our family? After she hung up the phone, Yi Huanyan sighed faintly. Her family didn't like Ling Han so much, because she looked like a ghost when she came back. And Ling Han couldn't shirk too much of the responsibility for that. She had originally planned to consider this matter after the movie was completed, but she hadn't expected Gu Heng to call her directly. And from Wen Yi's words, even if she didn't like Ling Han, since he had the intention of reconciling with her daughter, she couldn't hide it from them. She had to go through them first. After they got off the plane, the Gu family arranged for a car to pick them up and take them to the dock. The Four Seasons villa was on the island, so it was considered private property. Without the Gu family's cruise ship, it was basically impossible to get there. When Ling Han first came here, he waited bitterly for a week in Los Angeles. Thinking about it, That was a few months ago. Before entering the villa, Yi Huanyan gave Ling Han a heads up. My mom has a short temper. My brother said that it's all because my dad spoiled her. You have to go along with her later. No matter what bad things she says about you, don't go against her. Ling Han smiled bitterly. Do I look like I have that kind of confidence? But you don't have to go along with her too much. You should avoid her when you need to. My mom is the vice president of the Pistol Association. She's the president. Naaneo, who was holding Yi Huanyan's hand, corrected her. Grandma told me about it in a video call last night. She's been a full-time employee for a long time. It's okay. Even if she really shoots me twice, I won't dodge. Hearing this, Yi Huanyan's eyes trembled slightly. Along the way, she deliberately said a lot of things about how her parents were difficult to get along with. In fact, she just wanted to scare Ling Han and play a joke on him. She didn't expect him to be like this, so she didn't know what to say. Naaneo curled the corners of her mouth and revealed a disdainful smile. Are you stupid? You didn't even dodge when you were hit. Grandpa definitely doesn't like you. Ling Han's eyes froze and she stuttered. Is that so? It was quite difficult to please everyone in the Gu family. For example, Yi Huanyan's biological brother, Gu Xinian, had a lot of hostility toward Ling Han. If she wanted to please him, she could only rely on Ji Xiaoya. Fortunately, Ji Xiaoya was his former employee, and he took good care of her. He had also helped her a lot in her work over the years, so he would reluctantly give her face. Besides, Yi Huanyan's biological mother, Wenyi, was the only daughter of a world-class jewelry master and the only successor. It was not the first time she heard that she had a strange temper. This was related to her early experience of wandering around the world with her father in her early years. She had a very shrewd eye for people and was very difficult to deal with. Her father, Gu Heng, was now the behind-the-scenes leader of the Gu Financial Group. Although the entire financial group had been handed over to Gu Xinian, his two titles of Wall Street Financial Tycoon and Stock God were not just for show. Ling Han's impression of him stopped at the framed old newspapers of famous people in the world. One of them was already yellowed. At that time, it was still a black and white photo. In the photo, Gu Heng was gentle and elegant. This newspaper was an interview from the New York Times more than 30 years ago. It was also the only public information about Gu Heng. At the entrance of the villa, 6 different models of cars were parked in a threatening manner. In front of the car closest to Yi Huanyan and the others, 8 assistants wearing white gloves and suits stood in 2 rows in front of the car door. They were all dressed in the same uniform and looked very majestic. They had the posture of a gang. The leaders were the siblings Gu Lu and Gu Min. When they saw Yi Huanyan, they bowed respectfully at 90 degrees. Hello, 2nd Mississippi. Hello, young master. The people behind them also bowed in unison and shouted as if they had rehearsed. Hello, 2nd Mississippi. Hello, young master. This majestic array scared Yi Huanyan so much that her legs went weak. Gu Min was the closest to her and helped her up. 2nd Miss, are you okay? Are you seasick? Yi Huanyan glanced at her and thought to herself, I'm not seasick. I'm just seasick. What are these guys trying to do? Chapter 409. Yi Huanyan still wanted to turn around and say something to Ling Han, but Gu Lu had already stepped forward and stood in front of her, separating Ling Han from her. Yi Huanyan looked at Gu Lu's back and only heard him speaking to Ling Han in a voice that was much colder than usual. He looked like a fox exploiting the tiger's might. Mr. Ling, since it's your first time here, Madam asked me to show you around. Which car do you usually sit in? Good Lord. No wonder there were so many of the world's top 10 luxury cars lined up at the entrance. Yi Huanyan was blocked by Gu Lu, so she couldn't see Ling Han's expression. But when she heard this, she couldn't hold it in anymore. She wanted to take off her shoe and hit Gu Lu, who taught this nouveau riche to put on a show of strength. Up to you. I'm fine with anything. Ling Han's voice rang out. It passed through Gu Lu's huge body and landed in Yi Huanyan's ears. Gu Min had already pulled open the car door and invited her to get in. She was a little worried, but she still got into the car. When Ling Han was about to leave with Gu Lu, Naaneo, who had been standing there without moving, suddenly poked his waist and smiled slyly. It's not too late for you to leave now. Ling Han didn't say anything. He raised his hand and patted his head. Then he turned around and glanced at Yi Huanyan, who had already gotten into the car. Coincidentally, Yi Huanyan was also looking at him. Their eyes met, and both of them revealed a tacit smile. The only difference was that Ling Han's smile was serious and certain, while Yi Huanyan's smile was a little helpless. Little master, get in the car. Coming. Naaneo glanced at Ling Han one last time. His heart was filled with the feeling of being patted on the head by him just now. It was a little awkward, but not uncomfortable. After Naaneo got into the car, Gumin also got in before closing the door. Once the door was closed, Yi Huanyan's expression changed. She glared at her fiercely. Who came up with the search idea? Are you trying to disgust me or Ling Han? Gumin's face was full of righteousness. She said in a deep voice, Second miss, actually this is a good way to show the power behind you. That way, you won't be bullied when you get married in the future. Even so, isn't this a little too vulgar? Who doesn't know about the Four Seasons villa? Who doesn't? If my father stomps his feet, all the domestic enterprises will collapse. Is there a need to do so much? This is, she said seriously to her. What if others think that you're not important in the gu to you? This closeness to the family can easily affect your status in the family after marriage. Yi Huanyan was about to refute when she suddenly realized that the woman in front of her, whose range of activities was limited to cleaning her gun and practicing shooting, was saying something that was out of line with her habits. She suddenly said in shock, That's not right. Gumin, who told you all this nonsense? Don't you usually only play with guns? Gumin lowered her head slightly and looked a little embarrassed. Young master and young madam are back. Xiao Yu told you. I think young madam makes a lot of sense. Bullsh *T sense. Yi Huanyan pursed her lips. So she was the one who came up with all these bad ideas, right? Gumin hesitated for a few seconds. It must be her idea, Yi Huanyan directly asserted. After taking a deep breath, she angrily took out her phone and called Ji Xiaoya. Before she could speak, a noisy voice came from the other end of the line. Io, Yin Yan, I just heard that you got into the car at the entrance. It's only such a short journey and you can't wait. Why didn't you call me when you missed me? Cut the crap. What's going on with that messy convoy and those people at the entrance? Was it your idea? I felt it. How is it? Do you want to praise me? What's with Ling Han's expression? Is he so scared that he's trembling? Yi Huanyan was speechless. She sat up straight and said, Don't tell me you have a grudge against him? When you were a secretary at his company, he gave you a lot of free wages. I don't like what you're saying. I didn't do what Mom asked me to do, because we're old acquaintances. If you knew what Mom's original plan was, you should thank me. I took a step back to remind her about that little trick at the door. You're still being reasonable. Aya, my bread is going to burn. Uncle Sinian, come and answer your sister's call. Calling Gu Sinian uncle was something between Ji Xiaoya and Gu Sinian, but in Yi Huanyan's ears, it was very unpleasant. It wasn't until a clear voice sounded on the other end that the mess in her mind diluted. Yin Yin, you're back? Brother, aren't you spoiling your wife too much? When I first brought her into the family, I put in a good word for her. Why is it that when it comes to Ling Han, all of you are in cahoots? Yi Huanyan went straight to the point and asked coldly, What else do you plan to do? Mom and Dad can just scold her a little. Don't hurt her self-esteem. Based on the situation at the door, it was hard to imagine the humiliating things that would happen later. After Yi Huanyan finished venting, Gu Sinian controlled his temper and spoke. As soon as he opened his mouth, he laughed and was choked by Yi Huanyan. You're still laughing? Xiao Yu's temper is going to explode. After marrying you, she won't be my best friend anymore, right? I'm going to cut ties with her. That's enough. Gu Sinian was afraid that she would continue talking until she reached the entrance of East Park, so he interrupted her. Even if you cut ties with her, she's still your sister-in-law. Are you done yelling? If you're done, listen to me. If you're in a good mood, I'll tell you what Mom and Dad think. Yi Huanyan didn't even falter. That's enough. She had learned this trick from Ji Xiaoya. Once she was done yelling, the other party would be annoyed and would naturally stop beating around the bush. Wouldn't they tell you everything? This trick was most effective on Gu Xinian. It could be seen from Ji Xiaoya. However, after hearing Gu Xinian talk about her mother's plan, Yi Huanyan really couldn't bring herself to laugh. She hung up the phone and hurriedly called Ling Han. A puzzled voice came from the other end. Hello. Yin Yin you. Don't say anything else. Get Gu Lu to take you. Turn around and say you're not going. We're going back to Lan River. The other end was silent for a few seconds. What's wrong? Don't ask. My dad is easy to talk to, but my mom's temper is really hard to deal with. Let's go, let's go. If there's a chance in the future, I'll think of a way to bring you here. As Ling Han listened to the phone, he raised his head and glanced at the people in the distance who were gesturing at him with darts. His expression was still calm. It's okay, Yin Yen. I'm going to see your mother soon. Hello, you dash. Before Yi Huanyan could emphasize the seriousness of this matter, the other end of the line had already hung up. Ling Han switched off his phone and looked at the black cloth in Gu Lu's hand. Do you want me to cover my eyes? Gu Lu nodded and picked up the black cloth. Cover your eyes first, in case you can't take it. If you shake and hurt yourself, we won't be able to explain it to Second Mississippi. Chapter 410. There's no need. Just do it. Ling Han didn't even seem to change the rhythm of his breathing. He stood ramrod straight in front of the giant red and blue target with a diameter of 2 meters. His gaze pierced through the air and landed on the figure sitting on the sofa opposite him. Why don't you do it yourself? Otherwise, it might not be enough to vent your anger. Wen Yi's hand that was holding the coffee paused for a moment. When she looked up, there was a cold mist in her eyes. You better put away your tricks in front of me. The trick of injuring yourself to gain my sympathy? That won't work on me. When Wen Yi was young, she had a very fiery temper. After meeting Gu Heng, her temper improved a lot. Now that she was at home, she had developed a spoiled and lazy personality. She was gentle and didn't get angry easily. This was because she didn't dare to have any troublesome matters placed in front of her. Ling Han's arrival was probably the second most troublesome matter in the past 32 years, after Yi Huanyan being kidnapped. Faced with such a rude attitude, Ling Han didn't even frown. He raised his wrist to look at the time and said unhurriedly, Yin Yin probably knows what you're going to do. She should be here soon. So if you really want to vent your anger, you should hurry up and do it. When Yi snorted coldly, she looked at Ling Han from the corner of her eyes. Is that so? So that's why you're so fearless? Ling Han frowned. He realized that no matter what he said at this moment, it would be wrong. He simply shut his mouth and didn't explain further. However, when Yi's voice kept coming from the headset, then do you know how many shooting ranges there are in the villa? Are you close enough to my son and daughter-in-law to let them stand up for you and tell Yin Yin exactly which shooting range you're at? Ling Han still didn't say anything. His body, which was standing in front of the target, stiffened a little. When he got up from the sofa, she raised her hand, and the bodyguard beside her handed her protective gear and a gun. Ling Han glanced at Gu Lu beside him. You're staying here? Gu Lu took 2 steps back and looked at Ling Han quietly without responding. While speaking, Wen Yi had already put on her ear protection and raised her pistol in the direction of Ling Han. In the middle of the open grassland, there were more than 10 targets lined up side by side with Ling Han. However, they were all normal-sized and not as large as the one behind him. Thinking that his future mother-in-law had specially tailored such a target for him, Ling Han unexpectedly revealed a trace of a smile. This smile caused Wen Yi to furrow her brows. Bang! When he fired the gun, the sound was not loud. The gun was equipped with a silencer, but it still made Wen Yi's palm tremble. The bullet flew out of the barrel and towards Ling Han. Bang! Almost instantly, Ling Han heard the sound of a wooden board being penetrated. Wood chips and dust danced in the air. This bullet passed close to his ear. He was on the brink of death. He only felt that his legs were a little numb from standing for too long. Actually, his mind couldn't describe what he was feeling. Perhaps it was because he had made all the preparations before he came, and wanted the Gu family to agree at all costs. So when Gu Lu brought him to the shooting range and said that Yi Huanyan's mother wanted to use him as a target practice, he was even a little relieved. After all, this was an opportunity for him to vent his anger. Many times, when faced with helpless situations, it was acceptable to vent one's emotions. Yi Huanyan had ignored her family's objections and wanted to reconcile with him. This was something that couldn't be helped. Using him as a target practice was a way to vent her anger. He accepted it all. The second shot went off without him being prepared. This time, it hit the side of his waist. The target shook, but he still didn't move. At this moment, he could even smell a burning smell in his ears. The friction of the bullet passing through the wooden board made him feel like he was drilling wood to start a fire. The third shot was fired above his head. A cluster of sparks burst out like fireworks. He felt like his hair was being burned, but it disappeared very quickly, so it was fine. When he fired very quickly, he didn't even have time to react to these 3 shots. It wasn't considered torture. He originally thought that he would have to fire more shots, but when Yi's assistant rushed over and said something, she suddenly put down the gun and waved at him, gesturing for him to come over. Yi Huanyan pulled Gu Heng's arm and walked into the shooting range without any obstruction. Gu Heng was pulled so hard that his casual clothes were all over the place. Knowing that she was anxious, he comforted her. When Yi won't do anything to him. Yen Yen, you don't have to be so anxious. Brother told me that mom prepared a human target at the shooting range. She wants to use Ling Han as an experiment. That's your brother playing with you. Whether it's a joke or not, you'll know once you come with me. Hey, slow down. Your father's body isn't as good as it used to be. Yi Huanyan glanced at him from the corner of her eyes. It was the end of November, and the man could still wander outside in a thin hoodie. He had white hair on his temples, but his body was very strong and healthy. Now that he was nagging and deliberately slowing her down, it could be said that everyone knew what he was up to. He was covering up for Wen-yi so obviously, because he wanted to protect his wife and cause trouble. Gu Heng was actually a witty and humorous person. However, in the 20 years that Yi Huanyan had been missing, he had become a person who did not like to smile. It could be seen from the fact that Gu Duo was very afraid of him. All these years at home, he was probably only nice to Wen-yi. Even Gu Xinian could not be bothered to talk to him. However, Yi Huanyan felt that Gu Heng was actually easier to talk to than Wen-yi. Wen-yi liked to do everything from her perspective for the sake of Yi Huanyan. However, Gu Heng was their daughter, so he always said the best. Yi Huanyan kicked the door of the shooting range open. After kicking it open, she ran to the shooting range and was stunned. Are you okay? Ling Han was sitting on the sofa, leisurely drinking coffee. Wen-yi was sitting opposite him. The two of them seemed to be chatting happily. When he saw that Yi Huanyan had arrived, he put down his cup and saw the man walking slowly behind Yi Huanyan. He was 1.9 meters tall, a head taller than Ling Han. He was burly and muscular. At first glance, one could tell that he was a martial artist. The gray hair on his temples did not weaken his aura. Instead, it added a sense of stability and vicissitudes. Hello, uncle. Ling Han stood up and felt inexplicably nervous. In the face of Wen-yi's imposing manner of shooting and throwing darts, he did not feel anything. However, when Gu Heng leisurely walked over, he felt pressured. How is it? I told you that nothing would happen, right? Gu Heng patted Yi Huanyan's shoulder with a smile at the corner of his mouth. He did not respond to Ling Han's greeting at all. Wen-yi lazily nestled on the sofa and looked up at the father and daughter in front of her. What are you two doing here in a hurry? Do you want to see me compete with Ling Han in shooting? Yi Huanyan looked around suspiciously. In the end, her gaze fell on Ling Han's face. Are you really competing with my mother in shooting? Ling Han smiled faintly and raised his hand to tuck her hair behind her ear. Yes. Chapter 411. Why? Do you think your mother will eat you up? Wen-yi pretended to be angry as she glanced at Yi Huanyan. Do I look that scary to you? Yi Huanyan took the opportunity to grab her arm and lay on the sofa. That's not what I meant. I haven't introduced him to you yet. I'm worried that you won't get along. What if I make you angry again? In your eyes, is your mother such a petty person? When he glared at her. Of course my mother is the most gentle and reasonable person in the world. Yi Huanyan was probably born with a sweet mouth. At this moment, Yi Huanyan stuck to Wen Yi's shoulder like a piece of gum, and couldn't be shaken off. Wen Yi did not want to shake her off either. She had not seen her daughter smile so happily in a long time. It was also rare for her to experience Yi Huanyan leaning on her and acting coquettishly. For a moment she felt a little sad. If her daughter had grown up by her side, she would not have known how to act coquettishly, and how clingy she would have been. When she thought of this, her attitude towards Ling Han softened a little. She patted Yi Huanyan on the back of her hand and said, "You can stay here if you want. You can be our judge." "Thank you, Mom." Yi Huanyan giggled. She rolled her eyes and turned to look at Gu Heng. "Dad, why don't you compete with Ling Han in shooting?" He had been busy talking to Winnie earlier, and did not notice that Gu Heng had been standing there for a long time without any intention of sitting down. Since he did not want to sit down, Ling Han naturally did not sit either. He allowed the former god of stocks and future father-in-law to narrow his eyes and look up and down for a long time. "No, I have something to do. You guys go ahead." With that, Gu Heng left. From the beginning to the end, he didn't say a single word to Ling Han, not even a single tone. Even though Ling Han had mentally prepared himself, he now realized that Yi Huanyan's father-in-law, who was the easiest to deal with, was probably the most difficult one to deal with. If he didn't make a move, he naturally couldn't deal with it. When he fired a few shots at the target in the shooting range, the monitor next to her showed her results, which were very impressive. Ling Han and Yi Huanyan sat on the sofa and watched, chatting with each other. "Auntie's marksmanship is very good. How can it not be good? I've been practicing since I was young. In the past, I followed my grandfather to mine in the mines outside. In order to find some rare gems, we often got into conflicts with people. The places we went to didn't prohibit guns, so I learned how to shoot well." Yi Huanyan took a sip of tea and suddenly said mysteriously, "Let me tell you, before my mother met my father, she was actually an international wanted criminal for a period of time." Ling Han played along with her attitude and sat with a stunned expression. He lowered his voice and asked, "Really? Why?" "Although I don't quite believe it. I heard from my brother that when my mother was young, she was fancied by an Eastern European royal prince. In the end, she ran away before the wedding. After that, she was hunted down until she met my father. So that's how it is." Ling Han had a thoughtful look on his face. "You don't believe it either, right?" Yi Huanyan put down the teacup and smiled. "I don't believe it either. To put it bluntly, my father was just a slightly famous stock trader at that time. If my mother was really hunted down, what ability did he have to protect her? Going against the royal family? Isn't that stupid? My brother thinks I'm a child." As they spoke, Winnie had already removed her equipment and walked back. She stretched and looked at Yi Huanyan. "What are you talking about? I'm not at a tea party. Go and practice your marksmanship. Otherwise, you won't even have the ability to fight back if you're bullied in the future." Yi Huanyan raised her eyebrows. "Mom, spare me. I haven't even touched a gun before. Gu Min is over there. Let her teach you." "I don't want to learn this." When he looked at her meaningfully. "How about, when you get married, I'll let Gu Min be your dowry. That's more reliable than you learning it yourself. Yin Yin, go and play for a while." Ling Han spoke and looked at her comfortingly. His eyes flashed 3 words. "I'm fine." Yi Huanyan then moved her but unwillingly. She stood up and walked in the direction of Gu Min. In the past 5 years, Yin Yin spent very little time at the villa. More than half a year ago, after the surgery, she officially came back to stay for a month. After that she went to Lanjiang. When he sat down, there was a hint of coldness in her voice. Ling Han frowned. "I'll treat her well in the future. I was wrong in the past. You're thinking too simply. Let's not talk about this for now. You haven't gotten past her father yet." When he looked at him faintly, there was a hint of playfulness in her eyes. "Didn't you think that I wouldn't be able to hit you when I fired those shots at you just now? Yin Yin said that your marksmanship is very good." "Oh, just like that, you're sure that I won't hurt you? What if I do?" Gulu only took 1 step back. The shooting range was so big. A person with bad marksmanship could hit anywhere. However, Gu Lu, who was usually the most reliable assistant by Gu Xinyan's side, only took a small step back under his instructions. It was clear that Gu Lu trusted Wen Yi's marksmanship very much. Wen Yi's gaze was complicated. It was mixed with admiration, but more than that, she was conflicted. If she didn't talk about what had happened in the past, based on his performance just now, he completely met her standards of a son-in-law. His expression wouldn't change, even if Mount Tai collapsed in front of him. He was organized and logical. He wasn't rash or timid. He was someone who could achieve great things. However, people who could achieve great things weren't necessarily people who were suited to stay at home. No one could guarantee that the same thing wouldn't happen again. Dinner was at Dongyuan restaurant. Gu Xinian and Ji Xiaoye were also there. Naneo had eaten too much dessert in the afternoon and was already asleep, so he didn't come. There were 6 people at the table. Gu Heng sat in the main seat. Ling Han sat in the last seat opposite him. Yi Huanyan sat opposite Wen Yi and Gu Xinian. There was clearly a seat next to Yi Huanyan, but because of the cutlery and the guidance of the servants, Ling Han was arranged to sit in a seat that was relatively distant from the rest of the Gu family. In Ji Xiaoye's words, it was so that he could be interrogated by the 3 authorities. After Gu Heng sat down, he said lightly, "There's nothing to entertain. It's just a normal meal. Everyone can do as they please." They could do as they please, but Ji Xiaoye and Yi Huanyan couldn't help but look in front of Ling Han. He was the only one who had a steak set in front of him, while the rest of them were sitting around a table of Chinese food. How could they do as they please? "Mom, this is too much." Yi Huanyan glanced at Wen Yi with an unpleasant expression. Wen Yi ignored her and smiled. "These are all home-cooked dishes. Our family prefers Chinese food, but we heard that Mr. Ling mostly eats Western food in China, so we specially prepared this meal for you. It's also to make you feel at home." Everyone couldn't help but stand up and applaud when they heard these official words. Even Ji Xiaoye looked a little embarrassed. She tugged at Gu Xinyan's clothes under the table and said in a low voice, "Who arranged this? This isn't very nice, right?" Gu Xinyan squeezed her hand and gave her a look that said, "It's none of our business." Chapter 412. Ling Han's voice broke the awkwardness that Yi Huanyan was unable to alleviate. "Thank you, everyone, especially Uncle and Auntie, for putting in so much effort. I like it very much." 4 pairs of eyes focused on his face, but his expression remained the same. He leisurely folded the napkin and placed it on his lap. Then he picked up the glass of red wine beside him and looked at Gu Heng, the only one who was not looking at him. He was elegant, poised, and generous. He did not show any fear at all. Gu Heng had treated him like he was invisible from the start. This was something that Yi Huanyan had only just realized. She originally thought that her father would be the one who would not object to her drinking Ling Han. At this moment, Ling Han had already raised his glass for a few seconds, but Gu Heng still had no intention of looking at him. Yi Huanyan could not help but want to help ease the situation, but when he secretly grabbed her wrist. "My dad doesn't drink." When Gu Xinian spoke, Ji Xiaoye looked a little stunned. What happened to not saying that it had nothing to do with her? "That's why I'm drinking this glass with you. Consider it as a thank you for waiting for my sister all these years. I didn't let her down." Ling Han was slightly taken aback. He nodded and cast a grateful look at him. He tilted his head back and downed the glass of red wine in one gulp. Gu Xinyan's words were a reminder to his parents that Ling Han was not unforgivable. He was already 40 years old and had spent more than 10 years around Yi Huanyan. He had suffered just as much as anyone else. Wen Yi was a person with a sharp tongue but a soft heart. When she heard this, her expression softened. Yi Huanyan saw this and hurriedly put some food in Gu Heng's bowl. "Dad, eat. This sweet and sour pork rib is pretty good." Gu Heng grunted in acknowledgement. When she saw that her father's expression was normal, Yi Huanyan felt slightly relieved. She turned to Ling Han and said, "Cut me some of your steak. I want to eat it." Ling Han nodded. He cut a large piece and placed it on Yi Huanyan's plate. "I want to eat too." Ji Xiaoya winked at Ling Han. Give me some too. Gu Xinian was still expressionless. When Yi was surprised to see several juniors casually divide up the steak in front of Ling Han. Since the steak has been divided up by us, you can reluctantly eat Chinese food with us. Gu Xinian glanced at the servant and said lightly, add a bowl of rice. Ji Xiaoya and Yi Huanyan looked at each other and smiled. Then, they started to pick up food for Ling Han. In the blink of an eye, the plate in front of him was filled with pork ribs, chicken, broccoli, shredded potatoes, and other Chinese dishes that were on the table. Gu Heng frowned slightly, but she did not say anything. At first, they ate awkwardly. Then, Gu Heng put down her chopsticks and said that she would leave first after eating, when he also left with her. After that, everyone heaved a sigh of relief. However, there was still some awkwardness in the atmosphere. Fortunately, Ji Xiaoya was there and told a few jokes. Gu Xinian naturally laughed along with her. Yi Huanyan also laughed, and the atmosphere became much more harmonious. After the meal, Ji Xiaoya dragged Yi Huanyan to the back of the mountain to soak in the hot spring. Gu Xinian and Ling Han could not dissuade them. In the end, they had no choice but to follow them. Originally, they thought that it was a public hot spring. In the end, the men and women were separated. After changing into swimming trunks and coming out of the changing room, Ling Han realized that they were going in the opposite direction from Yi Huanyan and the others. Gu Xinian was already soaking in the hot spring. When he saw that Ling Han was standing still by the water, the corners of his mouth curled up into a smile. Why? Did you think that the four of you would be soaking together? Are you disappointed? Ling Han rubbed his nose. It's fine as long as you don't mind. Two grown men soaking in the hot spring together. No matter how he thought about it, it was strange. Gu Xinian's indifference surprised him. As soon as he entered the water, he heard Gu Xinian say, "Stay there and don't move. It's so scary." "I thought you didn't mind." Ling Han laughed out loud. "I'm not interested in men." In the hazy mist, Gu Xinian's voice sounded. "Me neither." What he did not tell Ling Han was that there was actually no rule about soaking separately or together. However, he did not want Ling Han to see how Ji Xiaoya looked in a swimsuit, so he selfishly brought him here. No man, not even his future brother-in-law, was allowed to take a look at his wife's swimsuit. At that thought, Gu Xinian's lips curled up into a smile. However, Ling Han caught the hint of his smile. He frowned. "Are you laughing at me for coming back empty-handed?" Gu Xinian's smile faded. He raised his brows and said indifferently, "You're overthinking it." Ling Han's frown deepened. After a while he said, "What does your father like?" When he heard this, a hint of astonishment appeared in Gu Xinian's eyes. Ling Han had always been arrogant and conceited. This was something Gu Xinian had experienced a long time ago. For the past 5 years, the Gu Corporation had been suppressing Pleasure Group. Even though Ling Han clearly knew that Gu Xinian was behind this, he could still straighten his neck and not plead with him for mercy for 5 years. He did not even try to think of a way to say something nice to him. From this, it could be seen how tough this person was. This did not sound like something Ling Han would say. "Why are you asking this? Are you going to cater to his preferences?" "No matter what I do, I'm afraid your father will find it difficult to accept me for the time being. However, I feel that if I have a plan in mind and take it slow, it should be better." "Haven't you considered that my father might not give you the chance to take it slow?" Even through the mist, he could clearly feel Ling Han's depression. Gu Xinian pondered for a few seconds. "Perhaps I should comfort you at a time like this, but I don't think there's a need to lie to you." However, there was no harm in adding fuel to the fire and making things worse for her. He wanted to stand up for his younger sister. Gu Xinian's eyes glinted with a sly light. On the other side of the hot spring, surrounded by a bamboo forest, there was blue sparkling wine in an ice bucket. Ji Xiaoya wore a light yellow bikini and swam back and forth in the hot spring like a goldfish. She exclaimed, "This feels so good." Only then did she obediently lie down beside Yi Huanyan. Each of them held a glass of wine and chatted casually. "Judging from Mom and Dad's attitude, I'm afraid we won't be able to conquer it in the short term. Ling Han is so pitiful." After lamenting, Ji Xiaoya seemed to have thought of something and smacked her lips. But he deserves it. You think it's difficult to conquer it too. Yi Huanyan swirled her wine glass with a worried expression. Isn't that so? Can't you see how mom and dad usually treat me compared to how they treat Ling Han? The difference is like heaven and earth. TSK. You're showing off in front of me, aren't you? Yi Huanyan couldn't help but roll her eyes at her. If it weren't for me, would you have gotten to know my brother? I've wasted a best friend like you ingrate. Don't be like that. Aren't I helping you? Ji Xiaoya giggled. She couldn't help but kick her feet, splashing water everywhere. I have an idea. Really? Yi Huanyan stared at her doubtfully. Ji Xiaoya leaned over to her ear. Listen to me. Although this idea won't work 100%, it's very effective at 90%. Chapter 413. Are you kidding me? As soon as Ji Xiaoya finished speaking, Yi Huanyan exclaimed in surprise. She sat up abruptly, as if she had encountered a venomous snake, splashing water everywhere. Why are you reacting so strongly? Ji Xiaoya lay lazily by the side of the pool and wiped the water off her face. Tell me, other than this, what other ideas do you have? That's not going to happen just because you say so. Ji Xiaoya supported half of her face with one hand and looked at her. She stuffed orange slices into her mouth with the other hand and said vaguely, You've been seeing each other for half a year. Have you taken precautions every time? So maybe you're already pregnant. Don't you think I can feel it? Yi Huanyan frowned. I still think your idea is too risky. It won't work. You're so stupid. No wonder you hid from Ling Han for 5 years. Didn't you also hide from my brother for 5 years? Yi Huanyan pursed her lips. Hey, it's your brother who hid from me for 5 years. I've been looking for him, okay? We're the same. Ji Xiaoya lay comfortably by the side and analyzed. Look, my godson didn't have a father when he was young. Although he's quite good-looking now, there's indeed a problem with his personality. Don't you think so? That's because I hurt his brain when I was pregnant. It has nothing to do with Ling Han. Are you listening or not? Go ahead. Anyway, this child grew up without a father, so he's more mature than other children in many aspects. Whether or not it has something to do with the injury when you were pregnant, I think mom and dad will take this into consideration. They didn't have the means back then. But now that you're in a good relationship with Ling Han, if you get pregnant again, there's no reason to let Earbook be a child of a single-parent family, right? Maybe my parents really think so? How shameless! Ji Xiaoya rolled her eyes and turned away. She didn't want to talk to her anymore. I came up with the idea. It's your business whether you want to do it or not. The water vapor in the pool was dense, and the two of them seemed to have agreed not to speak again. Yi Huanyan lay on the edge of the pool and looked up at the sky. She took a deep breath and slowly exhaled. Some people were naturally incapable of lying, such as her. Women were busy and rarely had the time to soak in the hot spring. Ji Xiaoya dragged Yi Huanyan to accompany her to do 2 sets of facial masks, and then went for a full-body spa. When they came out of the hot spring, it was already dark. After returning to Nanyuan, Yi Huanyan stretched, took off her shoes, and stepped barefoot on the living room floor. It was the end of November, and the floor heating was turned on in every house. It was warm to the touch. Sophia placed the shoes she had taken off at the entrance, and asked her if she wanted to eat something. No, it's okay. Is Ling Han not back yet? Yi Huanyan sat on the sofa drinking water and asked casually. Ling Han, who is he? Sophia sounded very confused. Yi Huanyan was stunned for a moment and suddenly realized something. She had subconsciously thought that Gu Xinian would send Ling Han here. But now it seemed that not only did the servants not know about this person, but it was already so late. Ling Han probably hadn't been brought here yet. My brother hasn't been here either? At the mention of Gu Xinian, Sophia came back to her senses. Young master came here once, but when he saw that you weren't here, he went back to West Court. Yi Huanyan nodded blankly. I got it. She took out her phone and called Gu Xinian. Where's Ling Han? You didn't send him away, did you? The other end laughed. I was just about to tell you. What's the rush? He's been arranged to be in North Court. For the sake of Mom and Dad, you'd better not be too obvious. Yi Huanyan heaved a sigh of relief. If you're really worried, you can go and see for yourself. There are no servants in North Court. He's the only one there. I told him to tell me what he needs, but I don't think he'll say anything. Yi Huanyan wasn't too worried about the absence of servants. Ling Han wasn't a spoiled person. After hanging up the phone, she walked around the living room. Sophia, you should rest. I'm going to rest too. There's nothing else. Sophia was stunned. Okay. Although she said that, she didn't move. Yi Huanyan had to go upstairs and wait until midnight before she tiptoed out of bed. She put on a coat and sneaked downstairs. Then she ran wildly in the night. What was going on? She saw her boyfriend in her own home like a thief. Yi Huanyan was speechless as she ran. The lights in North Court were still on. Yi Huanyan hid in the hallway and listened to Gulu's voice coming from the living room. After a long time, the door opened and Gulu's voice came. Mr. Ling, I'll be leaving first. Gulu walked past the door and stood in the hallway for a few seconds. Yi Huanyan's heart was in her throat. If he found out that she was here in the middle of the night, it would be so embarrassing. Fortunately, Gulu didn't look back. He only stood there for a few seconds before he strode out of the yard. Yi Huanyan rushed into the house before Ling Han closed the door and threw herself into his arms. A sudden gust of cold wind hit Ling Han's chest, and he staggered back 2 steps. His back hit the shoe cabinet at the entrance. He furrowed his brows and tried not to make a sound, but the pain was real. His hands were suspended in the air, and he couldn't react for a moment. By the time he reacted, the person in his arms had already let out a long sigh of relief. You scared me to death. A layer of warmth condensed in his eyes. He wrapped his arms around her shoulders and said gently, "Why are you here now? Are you cold?" "It's so cold." Yi Huanyan shrank into his arms again and said unhappily, "Why did Gulu look for you in the middle of the night?" "I was blown by the cold wind under the hallway for more than 10 minutes. Why didn't you come in?" Ling Han opened his jacket and wrapped her in it. He patted her back and said, "You're the second daughter. Are you afraid of embarrassing yourself? How can the second daughter be so shameless? What's wrong with you? Weren't you the second daughter who was shameless when you pulled me into a room at the bar?" "Hey, I'm leaving if you keep talking." Yi Huanyan said this, but her body was very honest, and she snuggled into his arms again. "You came to look for me so late. Do you want to chat or comfort me?" "Both." She snuggled into his chest like a kitten and rubbed against him. Ling Han's Adam's apple bobbed. "If you're not leaving, I'm going to close the door." His slightly hoarse voice came from the top of his head. As soon as he finished speaking, the person in his arms moved. Yi Huanyan directly raised her leg and kicked the door from behind. After a loud bang, it was as if the whole room shook. Her arms wrapped around Ling Han's neck without any explanation. He lowered his head, and his eyes met a blushing face looking up at him. She was staring straight at him charmingly. "Ling Han, I want to have another child." Since she didn't know how to lie, then let's do something real. Chapter 414. Ling Han was a little confused by Yi Huanyan's sudden passion. After hearing that she wanted a child, an indescribably complicated expression appeared on his face. Yi Huanyan took the initiative to wrap her arms around his neck, kiss his lips, and tease his senses. Even though it was difficult for him to resist such an attack, he still held back. He held her shoulders and pulled her out of his arms. Panting, he said seriously, "What did you just say? What child do you want?" Yi Huanyan looked at him, blushing. "I want a child. We already have Naaneo, don't we? Isn't it good for Naaneo to have a younger sister or brother?" As she spoke, her hands were still restlessly moving in front of his chest. Her nimble fingers moved twice and unbuttoned 3 buttons of his shirt. Ling Han's breathing became heavier, but he held her hands. "Don't move. Tell me clearly first." "That's what I was thinking." She winked slyly, raised her leg and hooked it around his waist. She hung her entire body on his body, hooked her arms around his neck, and sealed his lips. Ling Han was very confident in himself. He could face any woman with a calm expression. But Yi Huanyan was an exception. Even if she was standing in front of him with clothes on, he couldn't help but feel restless, let alone such a living person taking the initiative to act out a live sex scene in front of him. At that moment his mind went blank. He supported her body and put her on the shoe cabinet by the entrance. Then he held her cheeks and passionately responded to her kiss. All the uneasiness of the past few days was vented in lust. After the world spun, the two of them tumbled onto the sofa, and their clothes fell to the ground. Yi Huanyin narrowed her eyes, and her hair fell like a waterfall. Her face was like a peach blossom, and she bit her lip and whispered softly. Before entering, Ling Han's movements clearly paused for a few seconds. Yi Huanyin didn't think much of it, and couldn't care less. She raised her head, and the crystal chandelier above her shone on her face, forcing her to close her eyes. Her hands gripped the sofa under her, and it made a cracking sound as he moved. After sweating for a while, Ling Han picked up the blanket and covered her body, then pulled out a tissue to clean himself. Yi Huanyin recovered from the dizziness and lay on the sofa, gasping for breath. From the corner of her eye, she caught a glimpse of the rubber wrapped in a tissue in the trash can. She frowned and asked, "Why did you wear it?" Ling Han turned his head and looked at her in confusion. His voice was hoarse, and there was residual lust in it. "What's wrong?" Yi Huanyin frowned and said in a muffled voice, "I already said that I want a child." Ling Han's gaze lowered a few inches. He bent down and changed the topic. "I'll carry you to the shower." Yi Huanyin's eyes lit up. She hugged his neck and breathed in his ear. "Why don't we do it again?" Ling Han was stunned. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he pried her hands away from his neck. "I'm fine with it. If you can't get out of bed tomorrow morning, your parents won't be kind to me." Yi Huanyin blinked. One of her legs stretched out from under the blanket and poked his waist. She looked seductive. "Do you care what my parents think or what I think of you?" Ling Han's Adam's apple visibly bobbed twice. A part of him that had just stopped moving was now ready to move again. As Yi Huanyin became more and more bold, his face flushed red. He growled and quickly pressed her down on the sofa again. He leaned on her shoulder and panted heavily. "Yin Yin, good Yin Yin. Stop fooling around." Yi Huanyin was focused on Ji Xiaoya's plan. She didn't care about Ling Han's situation at all. She became more and more reckless. Ling Han's entire body was on fire from her teasing. Before he lost control, he forced himself to hold on to a pink plastic bag that was half the size of a palm from the table. He tore it open with his teeth and reached for his lower body. Yi Huanyin saw the thing in his hand. Her expression changed. She held his hand and looked stubborn. "I don't want this." Ling Han frowned. "No." The two of them confronted each other, and the atmosphere became colder and colder. Yi Huanyin pushed him off the sofa. Her face darkened as she silently picked up her clothes and began to put them on. With a bang, the door was slammed shut. Ling Han sat up from the ground. The cold wind blew, and he shivered. He lowered his head and looked at a part of him that was still hard. He couldn't help but laugh bitterly. What kind of person would run away after flirting? On the way back, the more Yi Huanyin thought about it, the angrier she became. When a woman was angry, she had no sense of logic. In the end, she started to think that Ling Han didn't love her at all. He just liked this body. Unfortunately, this body was modified later. She even had the idea that he was sleeping with someone else. All kinds of dissatisfaction mixed in. Coupled with the cold wind, she had a headache all night. As expected, she didn't get up the next day. Originally, they were supposed to eat 3 meals in the East Court when they got home. However, Yi Huanyin was absent from breakfast. "Where's Mommy?" When he held Naaneo's little hand and asked. Naaneo strutted in like an old man with his hands behind his back. In comparison, his father, Ling Han, was much more reserved. He walked and stood, afraid that his future mother-in-law would find fault with him. "Mommy hasn't woken up yet." The Gu family's breakfast was at 8:30 in the morning. The whole family wasn't sleepy people, and Yi Huanyin was no exception. When he immediately felt that something was wrong, she glanced at Ling Han unhappily. "What's wrong with her?" Ling Han's expression froze. He didn't know if he should answer. If he said that he knew, it would directly expose that they had met last night. If he said that he didn't know, it would appear that he didn't care about Yi Huanyan at all. He was in a dilemma. How would he know? He slept in the North Court last night. Ji Xiaoya's voice interrupted loudly. Mom, don't worry. I soaked in the hot spring with Yen a little too long yesterday. I have a headache when I get back. Maybe I caught a cold on my way back. I'll bring some light breakfast to Yan's later. Wenyi nodded. Okay. After speaking, Wenyi didn't look at Ling Han anymore. She held Naoneo's hand and led him to the dining table. Naoneo didn't even take his hands out of his pockets. He just opened his mouth and waited to be fed. This attitude of a young master was much more impressive than anyone in the Gu family. Ling Han sighed in relief. He glanced at Ji Xiaoya and nodded as a form of thanks. After breakfast, Ji Xiaoya took the packed breakfast with Naoneo and went to the South Court to look for Yi Huanyan. Gu Xinian originally wanted to follow them, but when he stopped him, Anyan, don't go. I need your help. Ji Xiaoya looked back and didn't ask anything. She patted Gu Xinian's shoulder and said with a smile, do your best to help Mom. Don't come with me to join in the fun. We sisters are whispering to each other. Ji Xiaoya's figure disappeared from the hall. Wenyi looked at her son with a worried expression. It's about time. Who's here? Gu Xinian frowned. Xiaoying. After speaking, Wenyi sighed. It's been so many years. The two of you are really. When she called me last night, she was looking for you for a serious matter. She wasn't looking for trouble. Xiaoying is a good child. Don't worry. Chapter 415. She's not the type to look for trouble, Gu Xinian explained. Wenyi's expression was a little complicated. She looked like she wanted to say something, but stopped on second thought. After a while, she said faintly, forget it. Do as you see fit. Ling Han's attention wasn't on Gu Xinian's love history. He finished his breakfast early in the morning and sat upright. He watched as his future father-in-law slowly finished his porridge and even drank 2 bowls. Then, he walked away with his hands behind his back and still didn't look at him. During breakfast today, Mom didn't make things difficult for Ling Han anymore. Everyone was normal. It's just that Dad still treats him like he's invisible. Ji Xiaoya muttered as she placed a bowl of porridge and a plate of side dishes on the bedside table. Then, she pulled Yi Huanyan up from the bed. Xiaoyu, I don't want to eat. That won't do. If you don't eat, Mom will drag Ling Han to the shooting range in the afternoon. I don't dare to ask Dad for help. My head hurts. Why are you pretending to be sick? It's not advisable to go on a hunger strike or pretend to be sick. It can easily lead to family conflicts. Ji Xiaoya touched Yi Huanyan's wrist and pretended to pull her up. When she touched Yi Huanyan's wrist, she suddenly frowned and reached out to touch her forehead. She immediately exclaimed, "Oh, you're right. It's hot. Do you have a fever?" With that said, she turned around and looked at the little girl on the sofa. "Naneo, go call Safina." "Okay." Naneo ran outside and shouted downstairs, "Safina, Mommy has a fever. Bring the first aid kit up." Ji Xiaoya stayed by the bed and glared at her. "You can even get a fever from soaking in a hot spring. I feel really bad about it. Look at your small physique. Are there any side effects?" Yi Huanyan narrowed her eyes and bit the thermometer in her mouth, unable to speak. She could only listen to Ji Xiaoya's nagging. Ever since this person married her brother, she had become more and more naggy. She was very talkative every day. Especially when she returned to the villa, she liked to run around with a bag of snacks. Not only did she lead the prim and proper Gu Min astray, but she had also led Gu Lu astray recently. "Open your mouth. Let me check the temperature. It's almost 39 degrees Celsius. Lie down and think of a way to reduce your fever. If it still doesn't go down at night, I won't help you hide it anymore. I'll call the doctor directly. It's nothing serious. I just caught a cold last night. Don't tell my mom." As soon as Yi Huanyan spoke, he felt his throat burn. Last night, after walking around the villa in a sweaty manner, anyone would have a fever. Who knows? Ji Xiaoya sighed. Who knows how our mom will torture this future son-in-law this afternoon? Yi Huanyan's eyes dimmed a little. Do you think that Ling Han remarried to me because he feels that he owes me? Of course he owes you. Do you still need to ask? Ji Xiaoya blurted out without thinking. However, Yi Huanyan did not mean that. Her face was extremely pale. Last night, she was in a muddled state repeatedly in her dreams. There was the time when the two of them fell out, the time when they were innocent and ambiguous, and the time when they met again. Before she woke up, she saw a pair of eyes full of guilt. Those eyes in her dreams made her feel uneasy. What are you thinking about? Ji Xiaoya asked. Why are you suddenly asking me this? Did he provoke you? Or is it because you can't stand the pressure from mom and dad? Nothing. Yi Huanyan closed his eyes. I want to sleep for a while. All right then, you go and rest. I will come and see you before lunch. Ji Xiaoya adjusted the cold towel on her forehead. Before she left, she reminded Naaneo, who was slumped on the sofa and playing with his tablet. Your mommy is running a fever. Don't bother her. Come with auntie. Due to the underground hot spring, the bamboo forest at the back of the villa was shrouded in mist all year round. It was like a fairyland. Today, Fu Yingxiang was wearing a lotus-colored cotton dress with a large black lantern-sleeved cardigan on the outside. There was a fresh and elegant little daisy brooch on her chest. Her long chestnut brown hair had been dyed black at some point in time and was draped over her shoulders. From time to time, it would be blown by the wind, making her look like a fairy who had fallen into the mortal world. She had the appearance of a classic beauty. 5 years ago, before the Fu family's accident, she had always dressed in this style. She looked like an otherworldly fairy, as if she had no intention of getting involved with anything in the world. Gu Xinian approached her slowly, as if he was afraid of disturbing her. He stepped carefully on the dead leaves in the bamboo forest, but the leaves rustled. She turned around and showed a natural smile. You are here. Why don't you sit in the room? Gu Xinian asked. I am afraid of misunderstanding. It is not a big deal, but there is something that I am worried about unless I give it to you in person. I happen to be in Los Angeles, so I brought it with me, she said as she handed over the blue suede box that she had been holding in her hand. The last 2 bottles of that child's ashes are here. Although I know that you don't mind this, it will be better for you in the future, right? Gu Xinian took the box and looked at it apologetically. When he opened it, there was a glass bottle that was as thick as 2 fingers, and it was filled with gray powder. Why is it with you? During the wedding, I took advantage of the chaos to get it from Guduo. Since you didn't go, she knew that this thing was meaningless in her hands, so she didn't waste any time and asked for it back. Fu Yingxiang said it casually. In fact, when she was preparing, she wasn't sure if Guduo would really bring this thing to the wedding. After all, if she missed that opportunity, it wouldn't be easy to set up another trap for Guduo. Fortunately, it was a close call in the end. Thank you. Gu Xinian closed the box with a complicated look in his eyes. Fu Yingxiang was very relaxed and smiled. She didn't think it was taboo to bring it to the wedding. I heard that after she went home, she had a big conflict with her family. Now there is chaos over there. She wants to go back to the Four Seasons villa. Your parents didn't agree, did they? Gu Xinian shook his head. No, I was afraid that Yin Yin would be uncomfortable. Fu Yingxiang smiled again, but there was a bit of self-mockery in her smile. That girl really doesn't know how to behave. She can't know her place, and she still blindly thinks about it. She made a mess of her own life. In the end, no matter what happened, it was all because of her own actions. She was talking about Guduo, but how could she not be talking about herself? If you need anything in the future, just let me know. Don't think about the future. Let's do it now in this place. Gu Xinian, you still owe me a first kiss. Don't you remember? Gu Xinian was stunned. Everyone had a time when they were young, and Gu Xinian was no exception. From the age of 10 until many years later, Fu Yingxiang was the only girl of the same age by his side. Every year, there would be a few holidays where his father's good friends would send them to the villa to stay. At that time, the only girl in the villa, Gu Min, was still a snot-nosed person who followed her brother around. She couldn't even be considered a girl. Therefore, when he climbed mountains, climbed trees, and dived into the sea to catch fish in his youth, it was this woman in front of him who accompanied him. Chapter 416. At the age of 15, he was at the age of first awakening of love, so he couldn't remember clearly what he had promised. But when the scene appeared again, he would be heartless if he said that he couldn't remember. Don't tell me you don't remember? Fu Yingxiang raised her hand to tidy up her long hair that was messed up by the wind. At this moment, Gu Xinian seemed to understand why she suddenly dyed her hair back to black. On his 16th birthday, she had also come here to attend his birthday banquet in plain clothes. She was as elegant as a lotus flower in the midst of a crowd of young girls. Gu Heng had many friends and brought many children with him. For a time, the entire Four Seasons villa was very lively. However, the person he was most familiar with was nowhere to be seen. He found the group of girls noisy and gave him a headache, so he went to the back of the mountain to find this scene. The 15-year-old Fu Yingxiang was leaning against an ancient tree in the bamboo forest and playing her flute. She looked like someone who had walked out of a painting. "Hey, why are you here?" At that time, Gu Xinian still had a head of black hair. He had a domineering temperament and loved to tease people. He directly snatched the flute from Fu Yingxiang's hands. "They are too noisy. My head hurts. Also, give me back my flute. Can't you let me take a look?" Gu Xinian was used to messing with his friends since childhood, so he didn't notice that something was wrong with her. "I said give it back to me." The girl's tone became more severe. "I won't." Just as the word no left his mouth, he felt a fierce push on his chest. The youth didn't pay attention and staggered, falling on his butt and sitting on the ground. "Hey, are you serious? Give me back my flute." "I won't." "Give it back." In the end, no one could remember how they wrestled. They didn't fight at all and rolled around the mountain. In the end, Gu Xinian pressed on top of her and shouted, "If you scratch my face again, I'll..." The girl tightly clenched her teeth. "You what? I'll kiss you." Pop! Everything was silent, except for the sound of leaves rustling. Later on, the young girl cried uncontrollably. Her tears and snot flowed down uncontrollably, staining his sleeve. I only kissed your forehead. The first kiss is on the lips. I didn't kiss you. I didn't kiss you. Don't cry, Xiaoying, I was wrong." Amidst her sobs, the girl's voice rang out. "My mom left. When she left, she told me that all men are bad." At that time, Gu Xinian still didn't know that Fu Yingxiang's mother had died with hatred in her heart. Her last words were filled with tears and blood, soaked with all the expectations that a 15-year-old girl had for this world. "Your mother is right." The young man held her shoulder. "But I'm not. I'm definitely not. None of us in the Gu family are. Look at my dad. He's only in love with my mom. She can't even beat him away. All these years, my mother has been arguing with my father over my sister. My father is still very good to her. Don't you know that? Like father, like son. So I'm the same as my dad. We belong to the kind of good men who are loyal to one woman until death. It's rare." The young girl finally smiled through her tears. "What do you mean by loyal to one woman until death? Does that make sense?" "You're smiling." The young man rubbed her head. "You look better when you smile. You were crying like a ghost just now. I couldn't bring myself to kiss your forehead. You should owe me your first kiss first." "Gu Xinian, bad guy, stop right there. No one is allowed to move before I kiss you. Ha ha ha. I remember." Gu Xinian's voice was tinged with a layer of bitterness. The young man was just joking. How did you remember? But he couldn't bring himself to say such words. If you knew that someone had waited for you for decades, how could you say such words? Fu Yingxiang kept smiling as if she was possessed. Her tone was very relaxed. "I'm in a good mood today. I didn't cry, and I'm not depressed. So I should get back what you owe me, right?" "Are you really sure?" He didn't know what to say. He didn't know how to say it. "I'm really sure. I'm sure." The leaves rustled for a long time. Gu Xinian finally took a step forward and released the voice that he had been holding for a long time. "Okay. Everyone had obsessions. Wen Yi's obsessions were to find her missing daughter. Gu Xinian's obsessions were to let Su Ku and their child rest in peace. Fu Yingxiang's obsessions were just a young joke. Since she could fulfill her wish, why not? His silver hair was particularly eye-catching in the bamboo forest. The cross earring on his left ear had been removed. Standing in front of Fu Yingxiang, who wasn't wearing high heels, he was like a huge monster. He reached out and hugged her shoulder, as if he was comforting an injured kitten. She looked up and was still smiling. Her smile was pure and harmless, as gentle as water. Gu Xinian frowned. In the end, he lowered his face. The moment he leaned over, the person in front of him lowered her head slightly. The kiss that was supposed to land on her lips landed on her forehead instead. It was a little cool. Gu Xinian was stunned, but he was already pushed away. Why do you look like I'm going to rape you? Even though I'm 40 years old, I don't think I'm that hard for you to kiss, right? Fu Yingxiang pursed her lips and turned around with her hands behind her back. Her footsteps were light, and the tassels on the hem of her sweater swayed. That's it. I'm leaving. We don't owe each other anything. The bamboo forest rustled. Gu Xinian looked at the little black dot that was walking away. His eyes were filled with complex emotions. Fu Yingxiang walked away and got into the car on the main road of the Four Seasons villa. Go straight to the pier. Okay, Miss Fu. Her beautiful face was reflected in the rearview mirror. Many women dreamed of having such a beautiful face, even at 40 years old. At this moment, there was a relaxed smile on her face. She raised her fair and clean fingers to touch her forehead, hiding the bitterness in her eyes. She had gotten what she wanted. Uncle, you're done for. A childish voice scared Gu Xinian so much that he staggered. He turned around and saw an adult and a child standing behind an old tree not far away. When he saw the light yellow hoodie, he knew that someone had come. Xiaoyu. Naanea was wearing a red vest. Standing next to Ji Xiaoya, who was wearing a yellow outfit, they looked like traffic lights. She was hugging her arms. Her pink and tender little face looked like an auntie who was watching the show. She pretended to be deep in thought as she shook her head and sighed repeatedly. Uncle, you're done for. Xiaoyu, this matter. Before he could finish, the yellow light jumped into his arms. She looked up and kissed him on the cheek. She whispered, Xiaoyu. Gu Xinian was a little flustered. He heard her choked voice. The 3 words were hidden in the bamboo leaves, but it was not difficult to distinguish them. Thank you. Thank you for not being moved by such a good girl, and waiting for me to come. Thank you for the love in your eyes. It has nothing to do with time and waiting. It's only about each other. Thank you. The red light hugged her arms and staggered. Her small body barely managed to steady herself. She covered her suddenly red face and peeked through the gaps between her fingers at the 2 people kissing in the distance. She was dumbstruck. Mommy, what's going on? Why aren't they following the plot in the book? Chapter 417. I'll sleep with you tonight. Ji Xiaoya suddenly said this as she set the table for dinner. Yi Huanyan was slightly stunned. I have a cold. Aren't you afraid that I'll infect you? It's better then. Better than what? Yi Huanyan bit her spoon and looked at Ji Xiaoya quizzically. What's wrong with you? Did you quarrel with my brother? We didn't quarrel. I just don't want to go back and see him. So you quarreled with him? Yi Huanyan swallowed a mouthful of porridge and pursed her lips. Why don't you tell me about it? I happen to be frustrated in love too. Maybe you can comfort me and make me feel better. Ji Xiaoya frowned. We really didn't quarrel. I was just angry with myself and felt very uncomfortable. Ah, there has to be a reason. With that said, Ji Xiaoya climbed onto the bed and sat opposite Yi Huanyan at the table. She tucked her legs under the blanket and looked at Yi Huanyan with a deep frown. The reason is because I want to die. I suddenly feel that your brother might have made a mistake by choosing me. What do you mean? Did you know that when I came to bring you lunch this afternoon, Mom deliberately sent me away so that your brother could meet someone? Yi Huanyan was eating her porridge when she heard this. She paused and put down her spoon. My 4th sister? There was probably no other person in the world who could make Wen Yi send Ji Xiaoya away, so that her son could meet someone else. See, you guessed it right away. Your family's attitude is really... What do you mean by our family? I don't like to hear that. Yi Huanyan glared at her. Don't talk nonsense. Did you see my brother and my 4th sister doing something? Were you triggered? I didn't do anything. Ji Xiaoya frowned and thought for a long time. Finally she sighed and said, "Forget it. I don't want to talk to you. It's hard to explain. Anyway, can you take me in tonight?" Yi Huanyan stared at her for a while, but couldn't figure out what was going on even after a long time. She could only nod and agree. "Let's not talk about me. What about you? Didn't Ling Han come to see you this afternoon?" "Don't mention it." Yi Huanyan rolled her eyes. "You already know the answer." When Yi's dissatisfaction with Ling Han was all reflected in the fact that she asked him to help her with the chores. There were obviously servants and all kinds of surplus labor at home, but she just had to take Ling Han with her. "I heard from Safina that my mother brought Ling Han to the mountains behind to mine in the afternoon. She said that she wanted to teach him how to identify gems and wanted to impart her lifelong knowledge to him." "Mine?" Ji Xiaoya twitched the corner of her mouth and said, "Don't you feel bad? He reaped what he sowed." "What?" Ji Xiaoya widened her eyes in surprise and said, "What's going on? I saw you sick at noon. I thought you just caught a cold. Your attitude is not right." Yi Huanyan's expression changed. She lowered her head and ate the porridge without saying a word. After a while, she said in a muffled voice, "He doesn't agree." "What does he disagree about?" "About having another child." "Why?" Ji Xiaoya frowned and said, "He doesn't like children. Look at how obedient he is to Naaneo. Does it look like he doesn't like children?" Yi Huanyan took a deep breath and suddenly slammed her chopsticks. Her face turned red and she said angrily, "I think he doesn't want me to give birth to his child at all. Men are all bad. I agree with you on this point. Women were usually illogical when they were angry. It was very normal for them to dig up old scores or imagine some men's wrongdoings out of thin air. At this time, they urgently needed to vent. After venting, the matter could be considered half-solved." The two sisters hid under the blanket, and after berating the man fiercely, they fell asleep contentedly. One decided to pester him, while the other decided to forget the past. Yi Huanyan's cold did not recover, and it dragged on for 3 days. She did not know if Ling Han was deliberately avoiding her, or if Gu Yuxing's parents deliberately stopped him. But she really did not see Ling Han in these 3 days. Even if they were in the same villa, they did not see each other. However, the morning and night text messages did not stop every day. Yi Huanyan did not reply to any of them, but Ling Han insisted on sending her messages. 3 days later, Yi Huanyan's cold was mostly recovered. She woke up early and put on some light makeup before going to the East Court to eat. When Ling Han arrived, Yi Huanyan was leaning against Wen Yi's side and talking. The two of them were talking and laughing. Yi Huanyan leaned into her arms and laughed. Her body could not stop shaking, but when she saw Ling Han enter, her expression suddenly changed, and she sat up very seriously. Ling Han greeted everyone in turn. When his gaze landed on Yi Huanyan, it was covered with a layer of warmth. Yi Huanyan did not appreciate it. She raised her chin and snorted, looking indifferent. When Gu Heng saw this scene, his wise eyes settled with a layer of deep meaning. He looked at Gu Xinian and said, "Nian, go to the pier at 10:30 p.m. to pick up Uncle He." "Uncle He is coming?" Gu Xinian was slightly stunned. "Yes, he said that Xiaochuan wants to design an opera house. He has been studying all kinds of architecture for the past year. Recently, he has taken a fancy to the old church in our villa and wants to come and take a look. Your uncle He has nothing to do, so he came with him to visit. The timing is quite good." Gu Xinian looked at Ling Han meaningfully. A year ago, at Yan Yan's birthday party, Uncle He recommended his son and wanted to be our son-in-law. Wen Yi quickly waved her hand. "That won't do. Xiaochuan is too young. He is 5 years younger than Yin Yan." Ji Xiaoyi giggled. "Recently, it is popular for older women to date younger men." "Mom, age has never been the limit of love." "That's true. If Yin Yan likes him, we have no objections." Wen Yi winked at her daughter with a sly look. "Mom, I have only seen Xiaochuan twice. Apart from being younger, I really don't have any other thoughts about him." Yi Huanyan shrugged helplessly. "Don't play matchmaker. I already have a son. Why would I ruin a good young man?" While everyone was joking around, Gu Heng slowly sipped his tea. His gaze, intentionally or otherwise, landed on Ling Han, who was sitting opposite him. He did not seem to be affected by this half-truth joke. He lowered his head and cut the bacon for Naaneo. He put it to his mouth and said in a low and patient tone, "Open your mouth." "Ah. Naaneo, stay away from the screen when you are playing games. Did you wear the anti-radiation glasses I gave you yesterday? They are too heavy. My nose hurts. I don't want to wear them." Compared to Ling Han's patient look, Naaneo was much more perfunctory and even a little impatient. Ling Han frowned and lowered his voice to persuade him. "Naaneo, those glasses are not much heavier than a piece of paper." Naaneo sniffed and jumped off the chair with his game console. "I am full." After saying that, he walked away with the servant. He did not take Ling Han, his real father, seriously at all. No one was surprised by this scene. Usually, only Yi Huanyan would reprimand him. However, at this moment, she did not say anything and only frowned. Chapter 418. After breakfast, Yi Huanyan blocked Ling Han in the small garden that led to North Court. "Are you going to keep avoiding me like this? Yin Yin, do I look like I'm trying to avoid you?" Ling Han spread his hands helplessly. "Andy wants me to go back and change my clothes before going out to sea to fish." "Fish?" Yi Huanyan pursed her lips. "What is my mother thinking? Maybe she wants to test my sincerity towards you. Even if it's a test of sincerity, you can't do that." "Fishing? What fishing?" Halfway through her sentence, Yi Huanyan suddenly realized that Ling Han seemed to have changed the topic. Her expression immediately changed. "That's not what I want to talk to you about. I want to ask you, do you want to remarry me or not?" Yi Huanyan had been holding it in for 3 days and was extremely depressed. This shout was filled with anger. When she thought of how Ling Han only cared about feeding Naaneo at the dining table and didn't mind that the Gu family was joking about her marriage, she felt a little jealous of her own son. Her angry expression made Ling Han sigh helplessly. "Yin Yin, we haven't gotten a divorce. We don't even have a divorce certificate, only a marriage certificate." Hearing this, Yi Huanyan's expression softened slightly. She straightened her neck and said, "Then why aren't you anxious at all? What if my parents don't agree?" "I'll wait until they agree. Why don't we elope?" Yi Huanyan's eyes sparkled. "I can ask my brother for help. My parents love me so much. Even if I run away, they'll be angry at most for a couple of days." The cool morning sun shone on the two of them. These passionate words ignited Yi Huanyan's entire heart. For a moment, Ling Han was a little moved, but in the end, he just shook his head. His slender fingers brushed a strand of hair away from her face. His expression was firm. "Yin Yin, I want to give you a ritualistic wedding. Your family will be there, and mine will be. Only when they acknowledge it, will I feel that I truly have you." The external form of a marriage was just a certificate. However, Ling Han felt that although he had this marriage certificate for so many years, there were very few moments when he truly had this person in his heart. He was the one in the wrong. He owed Yi Huanyan too much. He knew that if he wanted to make up for it, it wouldn't be done overnight. However, he wanted to take it one step at a time. At the very least, he wanted to let the people closest to them acknowledge their marriage. A marriage with blessings would always have a higher chance of happiness. The people closest to them, such as their son and the living relatives of both parties. Yi Huanyan's eyes warmed. She pursed her lips, and her voice softened. She whispered, "Then why didn't you accept my suggestion? Do you not want a child, or do you not want the child I gave birth to?" There was a moment of silence in the air. Yi Huanyan looked up at him, her gaze gradually becoming more aggressive. The leaves rustled behind them. Ling Han's voice was a little hoarse, and there was a hint of pain. "Your brother said that when you gave birth to Naaneo, you had a difficult labor and suffered a lot of bleeding." Yi Huanyan's eyes froze. She really hadn't considered this reason. 5 years ago, when she gave birth to Naaneo, there were many burns on her body, and she was still recovering. When she gave birth to Naaneo, all the wounds on her body split open, and pus mixed with blood flowed out, staining the entire operating table red. That was probably the closest she had come to death 4 months after the car accident. She didn't know when Gu Xinian told this to Ling Han. She stared at him blankly, and her voice was tinged with bitterness. My body has completely recovered. As long as you're by my side, I don't want you to be in any danger, Yin Yen. Ling Han's hand gently touched her cheek. The pain, guilt, and love in his eyes were intertwined, and they couldn't be separated. He looked at the woman in front of him. This was the woman he fell in love with at first sight when he returned to China when he was young. This was the woman he had been entangled with love and hate for more than 10 years. Yin Yen, you don't seem to know how much I cherish you. Yi Huanyan looked at his helpless and pained expression. In the end, she couldn't continue to insist. She sighed, hugged his waist and leaned against his chest. You don't have to be so careful. I'm not made of glass. Everything will be fine. Everything will be fine in the future. Okay. He stroked the top of her head, his eyes filled with gentleness. Everything will be fine. At noon, Gu Xinian personally went to the pier to pick up Gu Heng's good friends, Uncle He and his son, to the villa. Out of courtesy, the Gu family stood in front of the main entrance of the East Court to welcome them. Yi Huanyan stood beside Wen Yi. She looked around but didn't see Ling Han, so she asked Wen Yi, "Where's Ling Han?" Wen Yi didn't even look up. She only cared about waving at the car in the distance and said perfunctorily, "I asked him to go out to sea to fish with John. They should be back soon." Yi Huanyan frowned. "Mom, why do you insist on making him do such physical work? It's not like you don't know that he hasn't done this before. It's precisely because he hasn't done this before that I'm making him do it. Don't forget that he's 8 years older than you. I'm testing his strength, so that he won't even be able to carry Naaneo in the future. I have to hand it to you for your logic. Oh, don't worry. Do you think your mom will eat him up? Your uncle He is here. Go say hi." With that said, Winnie followed behind her husband and walked towards the black Rolls-Royce. Uncle He was a mutual friend of Yi Huanyan's parents. It was said that he had pursued Wen Yi when he was young, but Gu Heng beat him to it. It was rare that there was no enmity between the three of them, and they had been friends for decades. Uncle He was wearing gray casual clothes. He was a few years younger than Yi Huanyan's father, probably because he took good care of himself and didn't have many troubles. His hair was still black, and he didn't look old. Next to Uncle He was a young man who was half a head taller than him. He was about 25 or 26 years old, wearing a burgundy hoodie, black trousers and sneakers. He looked very young and energetic. He smiled at Yi Huanyan, revealing his dimples. He shouted at Yi Huanyan, who was standing on the steps from afar. "Sis, long time no see. You've become prettier." Ji Xiaoya held back her laughter and secretly tugged at Yi Huanyan's clothes. "Does this little brat like you?" Yi Huanyan glared at her, then turned around and smiled at He Chaochuan. Uncle He smiled very kindly. He looked at his old friend and his wife, and said jokingly, "Xiaochuan said that he wanted to use the church in your villa for reference when designing the opera house. I told him that he had ulterior motives, but he didn't admit it. Look, he kept talking about Yin Yin the whole way here. He couldn't wait to praise your Yin Yin for her beauty. If you ask me, why don't your Yin Yin marry into my family? She's my only son, and in the future, the family property will be shared between the two of us." Wen Yi looked at Yi Huanyan and smiled meaningfully. "My daughter is a few years older than Xiaochuan. If she's younger, we'd be more than willing. It's good that she's older. She's 3 years older than him, and Xiaochuan is always changing his mind. It's good that someone can control him." While they were chatting enthusiastically, Ji Xiaoya was grinning from ear to ear. She leaned on Yi Huanyan's shoulder and whispered in his ear, 6 years older than him. Chapter 419. Before Yi Huanyan could think of a rebuttal to Ji Xiaoya, the young man ran up to them. "Sis, this is a gift I got for you. It's a music box I made myself." Yi Huanyan coughed dryly and tried desperately to signal Gu Xinian with her eyes. "Thank you, Xiaochuan." Gu Xinian smiled. He pulled his wife, who was trying to mess things up, over to him and said in a deep voice, "Dad, Mom, the restaurant is ready. Let's take Uncle He and Xiaochuan to eat first." Lunch was exceptionally sumptuous. It was rare for them to have a round table. Naaneo sat at the table, and there was a turntable in the middle of the round table. There were 8 cold dishes. First there was duck soup. Then there were more than 10 dishes with meat and vegetables. Yen Yen, Uncle, he opened a new resort hotel in the Maldives. You're welcome to visit anytime. Okay, I'll go when I'm free. Yi Huanyan was a little distracted. She kept glancing at the door. Mom, where's Ling Han? Why isn't he back yet? He probably forgot the time while fishing with John. Don't wait for him. Let's eat first. When he looked indifferent, she had a matter-of-fact look on her face. Yi Huanyan frowned. I'd better go take a look. It looked like it was going to rain. Fishing in this weather was always worrying. There was no signal at sea, so there was no reply to her text message. Winnie put down her chopsticks and looked at Yi Huanyan with a gentle but firm expression. Yen Yen, the guests are here. Yi Huanyan was stunned and froze in the act of getting up. Winnie had never deliberately asked her to do anything. It was normal for her to leave early when she was accompanying guests. She had never been harsh. However, her attitude today was clearly a little tough. The reason was obvious. I'm not that hungry. Why don't you accompany me to the church, Sister Yen Yen? A voice came from the opposite side of Yi Huanyan. It was He Chaochuan. He had put down his chopsticks and looked at Yi Huanyan with a smile. Aunt Yi Huanyan, please do me a favor and ask Sister Yen Yen to take me to the church first. Besides, my father and I are not guests. We are family. As soon as he said this, the atmosphere at the table became lively again. Everyone laughed. Uncle He laughed and scolded him. You little brat, you're always so playful. Yi Huanyan looked at Winnie hesitantly. Winnie smiled helplessly. Go ahead. If you're hungry, come back early for dinner. I'll leave the kitchen open for you. Coming out of the restaurant, they went around the small garden of the East Court. Yi Huanyan pointed to the top of a church in the south and said, the church is over there. Xiaochuan, go there yourself. If you can't find the way, ask someone. Yi Chaochuan was 25 years old. He should be able to find the way. Yi Huanyan was just being polite. After all, Yi Chaochuan wanted to help her. She could see that. Thank you for just now. I still have something to do, so I'll leave first. With that, she walked in the opposite direction. The location of the Four Seasons Villa was at the North Gate. Outside the North Gate was the dock, where several fishing boats and speedboats of the Gu family were parked. After taking 2 steps, she heard a voice behind her. She was stunned. When she turned around, she saw He Chaochuan following her. She was stunned. Xiaochuan, aren't you going to the church? Sister, where are you going? The dock at the North Gate. I'll go with you. No, I'll go find someone. Your ex-husband. A trace of displeasure appeared in He Chaochuan's eyes. The man who left you on the island without any news for 5 years? Why are you still looking for him? The word ex-husband was very uncomfortable for Yi Huanyan. She frowned and her voice turned cold. This is between me and him. He Chaochuan's expression changed. He took a deep breath and lowered his head to look at the ground. When he raised his head again, he changed his clothes and said with a relaxed expression, Sis, don't misunderstand. I just feel that it's not worth it for you to suffer so much at his hands. I don't have any other intentions. I just wanted to give this to you. That's why I followed you. Yi Huanyan sighed in relief. He stretched out his clenched fist in front of her and said with a smile, Guess which hand it's in? It was a child's trick. Yi Huanyan had always liked children's games, so she was used to He Chaochuan's childish behavior that did not match his age. Left hand. You guessed right. Sister, you're amazing. He Chaochuan released his left hand. In his palm was a dark gray mechanical bird the size of a fingernail. It was flapping its wings. It looked very delicate and small. What's this? Yi Huanyan suddenly became interested and took 2 steps closer. He Chaochuan saw her coming closer and deliberately clenched his fist. When he released it, the little bird in his palm suddenly became bigger. It was the size of a knuckle and was still flapping its wings in his palm. I originally planned to give this to Naaneo, but it was too small. I was afraid that he would swallow it, so I didn't dare to give it to him. So I'll give it to you. Sister, this was invented by a classmate of mine. He Chaochuan explained as he lowered his head, and explained to Yi Huanyan. Pinch it and it'll become a small bird. Pinch it again, and the bird will become one size bigger. Pinch it again, and it will become one size bigger. There are only 3 sizes in total. When it's the biggest, press this switch. He poked the bird's eye with his finger. Right here. Then almost instantly, the little bird that was the size of half a palm shrank back to the size of a fingernail. Yi Huanyan was indeed very interested in this gadget, but she was thinking about Ling Han's safety at the moment, so her mind was not on it. She only took a quick look at 2 of the gadgets, which could be considered as giving He Chaochuan face. After watching his demonstration, she was ready to leave. This is quite interesting, but don't move. The moment she raised her head, her voice was suddenly interrupted. At the same time, her left shoulder was pressed down by a hand. She was stunned and her body stiffened. What's wrong? Sister, there's a little bug in your hair. Don't move, I'll remove it for you. When she heard the word bug, Yi Huanyan's face paled. What bug? I think it's a little spider. Wait, don't be afraid. He Chaochuan's voice was very gentle. One of his hands was carefully fiddling with the bangs on his forehead. The unique smell of sunshine that belonged to a teenager filled the air. Yi Huanyan caught a glimpse of his toes moving towards her from the corner of her eye. Are you done? Yi Huanyan's tone returned to its usual calmness. Not yet. Wait a minute. I think it should be done. Yi Huanyan took a step back without a trace. At the same time, she raised her hand and flicked He Chaochuan's forehead. You want to take advantage of your sister? If I tell Uncle He, your ears will be twisted off, little brother Xiaochuan. She looked at him with a half smile. From this angle, He Chaochuan was just about to kiss her forehead. Chapter 420. Hiss! He Chaochuan covered his forehead and sucked in a breath of cold air. Sister, you hit me so hard. Alright, the joke is over. You should know the church. I have something to do, so I won't play with you anymore. Yi Huanyan raised her eyebrows and turned to leave. I'm not joking. He Chaochuan's voice came from behind. Sis, I'm serious. What are you serious about? You little brat. I'm 25 years old. I'm a few years past the legal age for marriage. I have my own company and house. I'm a rational man with an independent personality, sis. I didn't say you weren't. Yi Huanyan finally burst out laughing. She turned around helplessly. What are you trying to say? Seeing her laugh, He Chaochuan suddenly restrained his expression and looked at her seriously. Sis, be my girlfriend. I'm serious. Yi Huanyan stared at him blankly. Then the corners of her mouth twitched. Stop joking. You know that I'm married. I have a son. You can get a divorce if you're married. It's fine if you have a son. Naaneo and I will get along very well, don't you think? Alright, stop. Yi Huanyan couldn't stand it anymore. Why was this little brat making fun of her when the elders were joking? Was there an end to it? I really have something to do. I don't have time to play with you. Go play with Naaneo. With that, she walked towards the north gate. If one looked closely, one could see that she was in a hurry. After running a distance, Yi Huanyan covered her face and realized that her face was burning. She was already 32 years old. How could she blush when she heard a little brat say something on a whim? How shallow. The north gate was not far away. As soon as she walked out of the gate, she saw a familiar figure on a fishing boat in the distance. He was wearing a leather fishing jumpsuit. His hair was wet, giving him a mature charm. The closer she got to him, the more she could feel the masculine scent coming from him. Seeing that Yi Huanyan had arrived, Ling Han put down the fish in his hand and waved vigorously at her with a warm smile. Just like 10 years ago, Yi Huanyan also waved her hand and smiled at him. Compared to little fresh meats, she still preferred the older uncle type. As for why she blushed when she heard He Chaochuan's unsure confession, it was probably because she had never heard anyone formally confess to her since she was young, and that awakened her maiden heart a little. She walked towards the beach with firm steps. Standing next to Ling Han was John, a fisherman who had lived on the island for many years. Later, he was hired by Gu Heng and Wen Yi to be a guard at the north gate of the villa. Despite his age, he still acted like an old urchin. At this moment, he seemed to be saying something to Ling Han, and he started laughing to himself. He even whistled loudly at Yi Huanyan. John, your teeth are almost all falling out, and you're whistling at a woman. Don't you feel ashamed? Yi Huanyan shouted at him. John spoke in fluent English. He was not angry when he heard that. Instead, he laughed out loud. Dora, I told Leon again. If I were 20 years younger, I would definitely pursue you. Yi Huanyan laughed even more heartily. I don't like the fishy smell on you. Even if you were 30 years younger, I wouldn't want you. John seemed a little dissatisfied when he heard that. He rubbed his chin and muttered to himself for a moment. Suddenly, he bent down and grabbed a big fish that was thrown on the boat. He directly stuffed it into Ling Han's fisherman overalls. Ling Han could not dodge in time. He staggered 2 steps and jumped off the fishing boat. It took him a lot of effort to shake the poor fish out. The fish struggled desperately on the beach, splashing sand all over Yi Huanyan. John's laughter came from the fishing boat. Leon smells like fish now. Do you like it? Ha ha ha. Yi Huanyan glared at him, then jumped and climbed onto Ling Han's neck. She laughed and shouted at John. I like it. He's my man. Not to mention the fishy smell. I'd like to be sprayed with cuttlefish juice. Ling Han's hands were stained with fish scales. At this moment he was afraid that she would fall, so he had no choice but to hold her legs. There was helplessness in his eyes, but there was also affection in them. Yi Huanyan seemed to be particularly obedient today. He did not know why. When Yi Huanyan and Ling Han returned to the villa, Uncle He had already left. There was food left for the 2 of them in the kitchen. The 2 of them pulled up a small folding stool and sat at the entrance of the kitchen with their bowls in their hands. They ate while sunbathing. Perhaps Yi Huanyan's sitting posture was too bold, or perhaps the small folding stool was too small for Ling Han. The servants passing by all covered their mouths and snickered. My parents didn't ask you to come over for lunch. Don't mind them. I see that my mother's attitude is much better when she mentions you. Uncle He is a friend of my parents, and I'm not very close to them. Anyway, you won't have anything to talk to them about. It'll be more peaceful if you don't go. I know. Ling Han's slender fingers held the edge of the bowl. He picked up a piece of pork rib and placed it in Yi Huanyan's bowl. The sun shone on his brows, and he narrowed his eyes slightly. He looked even more gentle. Yi Huanyan was a little restless. She bit her chopsticks and thought for a few seconds. I'll look for you at your place tonight. Ling Han raised his brows. Oh, why are you looking for me? Yi Huanyan blushed. You already know the answer. Ling Han put down the bowl and chopsticks and patted her head. Wear more clothes when you come. Don't you usually ask me to wear less? Yi Huanyan was a little puzzled. Ling Han had already stood up and leaned over to block her eyes from the sun. She could hear his breathing and his deep, seductive voice. I prefer the feeling of taking my clothes off slowly. Even after he had walked far away, Yi Huanyan felt her blood rush to her head. That feeling of blood rushing to her veins did not go away for a long time. He was really an expert at flirting, because when Yi had deliberately distracted Ling Han from the incident at noon, Yi Huanyan deliberately did not go to the East Court at dinner time. When Ji Xiaoya called, she also said that she had a headache and wanted to eat alone in the house. Ji Xiaoya lowered her voice over the phone. Yin Yin, are you angry with Mom because you didn't invite Ling Han for lunch? At a time like this, you can't go against your parents. Haven't you seen those stories where the more you go against your parents, the more they end up breaking up the couple? I didn't go against them previously. I went along with them in all sorts of ways. But didn't I still end up breaking up the couple? It seems that my mom needs to see my iron fist. Damn, aren't you childish? Iron fist? You're still talking about me? Aren't you childish? Let me interview you, Ji Xiaoya. Because of the kiss that my brother didn't kiss, you slept in separate rooms for 3 days, right? Didn't you pretend to be generous in the bamboo forest? How did you know? Ji Xiaoya raised her voice a few octaves, but the next second she lowered it. I didn't tell you. Did Gu Xinian tell you? Do you think my brother will talk to me about his private life? I'm not a pervert. Then you. The villa is only so big, And the South Court and West Court are so close together. Do you think that the servants don't talk? I'm so free. Is it strange that I would listen to a few words of gossip? Damn. That you're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.